Please take a seat. We're going to close the doors now for our very special Pule presentation. Okay. Our very special Pule presentation this morning is definitely going to be historic for the healthcare conference. Last year, we had Kahu Kaniala Akaka Jr. lead us in the Pule. This year, he brought his ohana with him. So doing the Pule this morning will be his beautiful wife, Anna, his daughter, Kale, his son-in-law, Tyler, and even their mo'opuna, Anna, as well. And they will all be doing the Pule for us this morning. I ask that everybody remain in your seats while they are doing this. We won't be opening the doors until after they have completed their Pule out of respect for them. And now I give to you the Akaka Ohana. I'd also like to ask John DeFries, Executive Director of Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority, to join us here at the microphone.
Aloha kakahia kakaku. Good morning. Would like to offer Pule a prayer for this gathering in this special occasion. So please join me in this moment of prayer, Pule kako. E ko mako mako I loko kalani. Me kau keiki hiva hiva me ka uhane himulele. E na au makua, e na kini akua me na kupuna. Mahalo, you Kiakua, as well as all of our Aumakua and our Kupunar ancestors who join us at this time with this great ohana. As we ho'olokahi, as we come together in unity and in thought, as we ask to grant us the knowledge, the wisdom, the mana from above, so that we can continue our kuleana, helping each other, helping our community on this healing island as we have come to help Tokokua, Tukako, to make this place a healthy place and a safe place. We thank you for all of our great ohana here, and we thank you for the gift of life, for the gift of ohana, and we ask you to be with us, to inspire us here in this gathering, and to be with us each and every moment of our lives. We mahalo ke akua, we aloha ke akua. E mawako ka loko maikai o ka haku Yesu Kristo. Ke aloha o ke akua ka makua, me ka launa pu ana mai o ka ohane malele. Mai ke la aku, ai ka manawa pau ole. Amen. Mahalo.
Hello, Mike Kako. We wanted to take a few minutes this morning to finish the loop that started a year ago. How many of you were at last year's opening of the conference? For those of you that weren't here, in the way of background, that ole took place with Kaniela doing both the ole and the blowing of the conch shell, and made his way to the podium. And about 30, 40 seconds into the prayer, he experienced a seizure that we later learned was caused by an aneurysm. And those of us that were there last year were just in total shock, right? The good news is when he collapsed and actually fell off the stage onto the carpet, which could have caused another set of medical problems. Sitting at this front table were the panelists, and I was the moderator for that panel. And among them, there were 3 doctors who within seconds were attending to Kaniela. And then we had all of you exit the room and prepared the corridors so that the paramedics could arrive and tend to Danny. And so in that moment, all of us were disoriented. And then Randy Kurohara asked me if I would help restart the conference and whether the conference should be restarted at all. And it gave me an opportunity to go back to his chant. The chant that he just shared with us is really about calling the wisdom, calling the intelligence, calling the ancestors into the room. And a year ago, what that meant to me was that his own ancestors were in the room. Among them, his father, the late U.S. Senator Daniel Akaka, and his highly revered uncle, the Reverend Abraham Akaka. I will tell you, back in the day, the pastor of Kauai Church stood head and shoulders above all of Hawaii's leadership, and Danny's uncle epitomized that. But in between those two brothers, there was an older sister, Auntie Annie Akaka, who married an Akana. And Auntie Annie was my Sunday school teacher from birth, who taught us early on a practice that is still practiced within our family called La'aukahea, or the calling of light, the calling of healing, right? And so those of you, I want to thank you again for participating in that, because just as the medical doctors were the first responders to Danny, the La'aukahea made all of you in this room the first responders spiritually. And what I knew was that that image that you see was an image that I was holding in my mind's eye as that La'aukahea was taking place, that I knew that we needed to create around Danny a fertile field, because as the world came to know of his tragedy, spiritual energy would be flying from the four corners of the world. And it turned out to be true. That's the backdrop to this. Today we're here to have Anna and Danny talk about their experience, talk about the immediate days, the immediate hours, really. And Anna, you may want to, Anna was not in the room with us that day, so she went directly to the hospital. And one of their close family friends was there at her side, and I'll have her explain who that was.
First and foremost, I wanted to say mahalo anui loa ya oko pakahi. Mahalo nui to all of you for being a part of his healing as the first responders, as John referred to, the spiritual first responders. We know that here in Hawaii, the rich fabric of our DNA is well interwoven with the physical and the spiritual. When it comes to all facets of life, all facets of healing. And your participation in that La'aukahea, a very, very ancient healing art of Hawaii that is usually not done in a large group setting like this. It is a very private, coveted huna procedure. And so you can only imagine our surprise when we learned that all of you blended your spiritual energy together in what we call kukulukumuhana, where you have one combined energy. You can do miraculous things in healing. So mahalo anui loa for that.
And I want to personally thank God, mahalo ke akua, and to thank all of you who came together on that day almost a year ago to share your mana, to share your energy, to share your prayers and good thoughts, so that this, whole, episode that happened would turn out to be something that's pono. It's good. And, I'm so grateful to all, of course, to the ohana, to the family, to Anna, to our daughter, Kalei, and all the medical help that I received throughout this whole year, and uh, and the many prayers. I'm really a grateful guy for this, and it was a number of days before I was unconscious the whole time. But when I got up, where am I? um, I was, and I'm still learning things about what happened in that week.
Yeah, and from the moment that this happened, how fortuitous that he would be here in a setting, a healthcare summit of all places, where he would be able to receive that kind of physical medical care immediately, literally immediately, as he lay before the doctors. Dr. Dolan, thank you again for being here, along with Dr. Lim and Dr. Kat. But we spoke of the healing process, both physically and spiritually, and it began at that moment as we learned that when everyone had exited, as he was being resuscitated, when Dr. Kat was present during the resuscitations, and she sent a message that said, "Please let him know that during the resuscitations, I could hear Hawaiian chanting on and off, but I could never identify who it was coming from. Everyone was out of the room." I asked Dr. Lim, who delivered that message to me, I said, "Dr. Lim, did you hear the chanting also?" He shook his head. "I did not." And as our daughter said, "See, Papa, both sides of the veil were working on you." But in that time, all of these things that occurred, and as we were up at the North Hawaii Community Hospital, unaware that you were all sending your energy, we were met there also by a dear friend who got there before me. I came from Kona. They came from Wai'ulaula area. It was Lynn and Mark Benioff. They were there with us before I arrived, during the 7 hours in which we needed to wait for a transport. I did not know that this island does not have a medical helicopter capable of flying from hospital, Hawaii Island, to hospital on Oahu, where the care was present that he needed. I did not know that. Thankfully, that is in process. Mahalo to our community, mahalo to Mark and Lynn for spearheading that. Their generosity in healthcare and education spans decades. Most people in our community are totally unaware that they have been a part of our support here on this island for decades. And it is only recently that it has come to the forefront and an understanding and awareness. We have been grateful for them for many, many years. They have been a very supportive part of Dan's recovery. Just so you realize how extremely grateful we are. Dan's injury was very severe. There was cerebral aneurysm that ruptured in his brain at that moment a year ago. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the best possible outcome, 5 usually make. They do not survive. He was a 5. A 5. When we had gone through so many experiences of all the prayer that came from literally around the globe, during those 7 hours, those few hours that we were at North Hawaii Community Hospital, waiting and waiting for a transport, energy came. It came from you, all of you gathered here. It came from dear friends that immediately sent it. And when they did, from his comatose state, He sat up, moved both arms and both legs. At that point, I said, Danny boy, you're going to be just fine. Just hang in there. We just need to get to Honolulu. With that said, though,
And
one
so
other,
we mahalo Master Hong Liu, who recently passed, for sending his energy remotely from a great distance from LA, where he lived, to kind of give me a kickstart. And with a combination of everyone's prayers, alao kahea, John, you know, the prayers from the Benioffs, Master Hong sending his energy, and all of the help and care that I received, you know, in the hospital at Queens.
and at UCSF in San Francisco, his first assessment 2 months after this had happened, the neuroscience physician there, after 2 hours of assessment with the therapist and her at the neuro recovery clinic, she looked at him and said, do you have any questions, Danny? And he said, I have so many. I can't remember this or that. I can't do this and that. And she said, Danny, just so you know, your injury was very severe. Your progress thus far is not only remarkable, it is miraculous. And we do understand and realize that in the medical field, when there's an aneurysm like this, there's a bleed in a specific spot. His was specific, but it had spread, as they say, globally. His entire brain was affected. So we mahalo ke akua and all of you.
You know that I went to see. We'll close this segment here because we have an exciting agenda. But thank you, Anna and Kaniala. I went to see Kaniala about 6 weeks after the episode, and I was in shock at what great condition he was in. And I knew he was on the right track because he was sending me signals that he wanted me to sneak beer or sake into the room. And Anna just gave me this look like it ain't happening, right? Okay. And I'll close with this. This image of the rainbow and that circle, and holding that image during the time of the La'okahea. And as Anna pointed out, La'okahea is not something that we learn to do publicly. It's something that we do with our own families. My family still does it. And it's very private, very personal. And so when I had to go back and share with his family and my family that this had been done with 300 people, rightfully so, they looked really perplexed, but trusted the fact that it was the appropriate thing to do. But there's something about this image that holds the identity of this island. This rainbow is visible to you and I because of 3 primary factors: air, the atmosphere, which serves as a blank canvas, light, and water. That part which we breathe, our ancestors called Ha, the breath of life. That part which is fresh water, they called Vai, the waters of life. And E was in reference to the spiritual dimension and the spiritual energy. So in that image that you're looking at right now is the very identity of who we are as a people, who we are as an island, and who we are that is filled with potential to establish a healthy environment, not only for our people, but for nature and the natural environment, which in turn nurtures us. So again, Anna and Kaniala, thank you for sharing the most personal journey that you've been on, and thank you again for being patient with us here. So thank you.
Mahalo nui loa, John, and to all of you. One of the things I Wanted to just mention that, and you hit on it, is that we all are aware of the physical need of medical care, but to understand and realize that everyone has mana, has spiritual energy that is also a very important part, an integral part of healing as well. And my hope is that the blending of both will continue throughout the way we care for people, especially here in the islands, and share that throughout the world. Mahalo.
Okay, here we go. Aloha and welcome. The Hawaii Island Healthcare Conference is on. This year's conference theme is Facing Our Future Together. My name is Lonnie Weigert, and I have the honor of being your host for today's conference. Before I begin introducing our first guest, I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips. First, please silence your phones and take your calls outside of the room. Just in case you don't know and you fear missing out, any of you that suffer from FOMO, I want you to know that whispering on your phone in the room means we still can hear you. Okay, so please take your calls outside. Also, for those wishing to join our network reception this evening at 5 p.m., we still have space. Please go to our check-in desk right outside the front doors here to sign up and get your just really cool wristband. And also the restrooms are directly outside to your right. We have a very, very exciting exhibit area this year, so much bigger and larger than it was last year. And so that is right out the doors to the left. You'll want to visit them because that's the only place coffee and water will be. So please head on over there when you have a chance and we leave the room for a break. Also, our breakout sessions will be held in the meeting rooms that are directly across the courtyard, and that will happen at 1:15 p.m. We will have lunch in this room, although the banquet tables will be outside, our buffet will be outside, so you can go ahead and get your food and then come back in because we have a very exciting speaker for lunch as well. We also have a lot of things that will be going on today. And speaking of where you're sitting right now, your seat is actually quite temporary because I'd like to encourage you throughout the day today to go to different seats. The reason is because you don't want to be the one person that goes back to the office and they ask, oh, so did you meet any new people? And you say no. And the reason you say no is because you only sat with people you knew. Now that is like major B, boring, so you don't want to be one of those people. Okay, so please, I will encourage you throughout the day to switch seats. In fact, I want you to try to meet 7, no, maybe 9, no, maybe 11 new people today. Odd numbers are just so good. That's why I'm just throwing that out to you. So let's take a moment now to introduce ourselves to everybody on the table. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead. Adapting to change is something that we are definitely going to be focusing on today, especially because it's such a valuable skill that we're hoping most of us acquire, but maybe might get better at it today. As this conference theme is, we are facing our future together, you may think that sitting at other tables are your competitors from other clinics, other practices, other nonprofits, maybe other hospitals, who might cut possibly into your future business. News flash, my ohana. There are no competitors in this room, none at all. We are all collaborators on the same team. And the only way we will survive is by pulling our minds, our talents, our resources together. Now, for many, this may be a very odd concept, but I want this to really seep in throughout the day, because the way that we conduct business now is the way they conduct business on the mainland. Everybody's siloed, everybody's separate. When if we could just simply come together on several things, imagine the resources and the reach that we could accomplish. This is not something that happens at just one conference. It is actually a cultural change. And this could be the first healthcare industry that actually begins it. So just think about that. No competitors in the room. We are all collaborators. And if we do not become strong together as one, they will come. They will all come over here and start taking over many of the businesses. We have a chance today. We need to be open-minded to the things that we will be discussing today. I would like to share a Hawaiian word, an expression, which means to call, to uplift, to respond. Yes, I am here. This expression, this word, is AO, EO. However, when I ask you a question and we respond, we're going to respond with all the mana and energy of which the Akaka Ohana spoke of from last year. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions, and when you share the answer, then we will say AO. But let's practice first, because, I just can't assume that everyone's going to get it on the first one. Okay, so all together, and you can really go with it, like raise your arm and everything to totally get into it. Okay, so all together, AO. Okay, that was a little bit lame, but we're going to try it one more time. Yeah, you know what? We're all family here, so don't worry. I won't glass it over for you. I'll tell you the truth. Okay, here we go. We're gonna do it one more time. Ayo. Okay, a little bit off timing, but we're getting close. We're getting close. I gotta have you folks all with me on this. All with me. Okay. Okay. Watch my arm. It's coming up. It's coming up. Okay. You guys ready? Ayo. Woo. Yep. Okay, that's how we do it. Okay. So now I'm gonna ask a question, and then I'm gonna put my arm up so you guys will know that's the signal. Get ready, okay? All right. So, are you here to expand your network by making new connections? Ayo! Are you here opening your mind to new ideas? Ayo! Are you here allowing your spirit to be uplifted? Ayo! Now that I have everybody's attention, are you ready? Ayo! Very good. Let's get started. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a big hand. No worries. Throughout the day, when you start wilting, you'll see the arm coming up, okay? All right, here we go. Without further ado, it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Randy Kurohara, Executive Director of Community First.
Wow, hard act to follow. How's about a round of applause for Lani Weigert? She was a, tremendous, help last year as being our MC, and again this year. So she's got a full-time job ahead of her here. But anyways, aloha and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second annual Hawaii Island Healthcare Conference. Mahalo to all of you for making the time to be here today. Our conference theme again this year is Facing Our Future Together. And like Lani said, it means a lot, right? So two things, we need as a community to have this shared vision of what healthcare will look like in the future for Hawaii Island. And that and that the word together implies, again, that no one entity can do this alone, right? That we need trust and collaboration amongst all of us. So in addition to connecting with others here today, in addition to better understanding the state of healthcare here on Hawaii Island, let's make sure that we continue to work together to set aside whatever differences we may have and commit to working together for the greater good. I'd like to recognize our Community First Hawaii board. So if our board members, we have a few of them here today, if you could please stand up, I'd like to recognize them, please. Stand up, don't be ashamed, right? These are the leaders in our community committed to working together. I would also like to mahalo our planning team and our Community First staff. Some may be outside, but if you're here in this room, please stand up. These are people that throughout the last year have been planning this conference. Some of them in the back over there. Mahalo. We have an amazing lineup of speakers and presenters here today. I want you to take full advantage of this time to learn, again, to understand, to connect with one another, and to realize that together, the future of healthcare here in Hawaii Island is in our hands. Mahalo and enjoy the conference.
It is with great honor that I bring up our Hawaii County Mayor Mitch Roth.
Aloha. Oh, what an amazing feeling this morning, seeing Danny and the family up here. I was sitting right there last year, and for those of you who are in the room, it was a really difficult time. And one of the things that comes to my mind, something I kind of live by, is that when God puts bad things, He always has something equal or better that He's going to do. And last year's theme was to bring people together, and in a small way, what happened last year did bring everybody together, for that moment. But more than that, there were so many miracles that I think that came out of last year. And Danny, I think you played a little bit in part of those miracles. Last night I was with the governor, and we were talking about coming here, so he wanted me to make sure I give my his aloha to the whole Akaka family and to everybody here. We started talking about some of the things, and he wrote this little note. Actually, we were talking. It's like, can't you just give me the slideshow? I mean, and he writes like a guy who likes the Pittsburgh Steelers. But anyhow, Anna talked about the helicopter, that helicopter, twin engine helicopter that's coming our way. $13 million for the helicopter came about in 2 days because of the Benioff's help. That probably wouldn't have happened but for that. And then there was the monies to not only Hilo Hospital, but Straub, I think about 100 million one way, 50 million plus, the legislature let go some money. So a lot of money came, and I know there was a lot of people in this room that paid a lot of attention to the legislative bills, and I think we came together. GE taxes for doctors, 875 healthcare families got help, 100% forgiveness. Pretty amazing. And I understand there's another $30 million coming in 2025, 2026. Those are, some amazing things that happen. But they happen, for a purpose. And I think all of those things and everybody getting together here is going to help save so many lives in the future. And that's what we're really looking at. And so I want to thank everybody who's been a part of this. I got one more. I forgot to mention this. I saw Lisa Rance this morning. And also, Danny, you played a little role in this as well. One of our fire captains, who's now a fire chief, deputy fire chief or assistant fire chief, had this idea of making sure that every one of our first responders have an AED in their personal vehicles. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, we're sure we can try to do that. And we had to look for some money. By the way, on our island, I think it's cardiac arrest is the correct way to say this. The survival rate on our island currently for a cardiac arrest is about 8%. So having a AED in every first responder's vehicle will make a huge difference. We had to raise, I think, over $1,200,000. We did that, and the Benioffs put in, a good portion of that as well. And I think also because of what happened, but more importantly, because we're all coming together. And that really is the message for the future. So Lisa Rance, where are you? So Hilo Medical, the Benioff Hilo Medical Center. And I understand you're still accepting donations. So always accepting donations. Okay, so I'll take my pay for that later on. Just contribute. Anyhow, want to wish you guys an amazing conference on Purpose Day. Have a great time. Thank you all for being here.
Mahalo, Mayor. That was great. Thank you. Mahalo, Randy, as well. And now I'd like to introduce our Lieutenant Governor of the state of Hawaii, Sylvia Luke. Let's give her a big hand.
Good morning and aloha. I'm honored to be here on the second annual Hawaii Island Healthcare Conference, and I just wanted to thank Randy for inviting me. When he first invited me, I thought, did you get the wrong executive? Because, maybe you wanted the doctor to be here for the healthcare conference. But he said, no, this healthcare conference is not just for a medical professional, it's about access. It's about the community coming together to ensure that we have healthcare for our entire state. So he said, you don't have to be a doctor, just come and speak regular language. So I feel a little bit like, okay, you might have been expecting great medical assessment issue, but you're gonna get kind of the low level, regular people talk. So this year's theme is Facing Our Future Together, and that resonates really deeply with me because in state government, you cannot do things in silo, and you have to do things together, various departments and various agencies coming together to take on this responsibility. And it really, truly takes all of us, government leaders, healthcare professionals, educators, community advocates working together to ensure healthcare access and equity across the state. We heard Danny's story, but each one of us, we have a medical story. And when you have even if it bothers you a little bit, it disrupts your whole day and it disrupts your activity. So I'm gonna share a little bit about my recent bout of medical difficulties. So it started with a pain in the back of my shoulder. And this is something that you should never do. You should not go on the internet to self-diagnose because medical professionals here, that's their pet peeve. And I tried to self-diagnose and I insisted, and I went to go see my PCP and I insisted that, okay, I must have some kind of a tinge. I must have strained my back or something. And then it started having significant amount of pain around the shoulder, which started radiating. So again, what did I do? I went to the internet. And then it showed the first thing that came up with radiating pain is pinched nerve. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have this pinched nerve. So I went back to my PCP and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to need physical therapy. I have a pinched nerve. And so she's kept going, no, maybe you need to do an x-ray. No, it's really, really sore. And I couldn't even do daily activities. I couldn't travel. And my staff was getting irritated because I was just very grouchy during that time. So my doctor said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna prescribe, okay, based on your symptoms that you're describing, I would prescribe 6 sessions of PT. Of course, PT didn't help. So finally, after several months of me relying on the www med, whatever comes up on my internet, I told my doctor, okay, it's not resolving. Can you, I'll trust you. What a novel idea. And you know, I have a love-hate relationship with my doctor, just as many of you, because when she told me that shingle shot doesn't hurt, and then I was sick for about 2 days after the shingle shot, I was like, okay, I cannot really trust this woman because. And you guys are laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about. When your doctor tells you the shingle shot or you know, the surgery, it's like nothing. It's, you know, it's something. And they trying to keep a straight face. There's a whole different conference of just doctors of how they can calmly tell you either bad news or things they want you to do. There's a whole thing because I know this for a fact. So I took the X-ray, and come to find out, she referred me to orthopedic sports medicine, and I went and took the X-ray, and I went to go see the orthopedic surgeon, and he said, "Well, the whole thing that you've been experiencing, those are phantom pain because your mind is so strong. It was starting to make up all these other pain." And Dr. Lewin is nodding, and everything that was going on, it wasn't a pinched nerve. There's nothing wrong with your neck. It's a little bit of a calcium deposit that found itself between the shoulder and the rest of the system. So it's a little bit, he said it's about half the size of a magnet that started happening. And usually your body can absorb calcium deposit. In rare cases, it caused tremendous amount of pain because it's a foreign substance in your shoulder. So I said, well, what should I do? And he said, well, it's an outpatient surgery, and all you need to do is come in, we make a small incision, and we blast out the calcium deposit, and then we suck it out. And what was going through my mind at that point when he said it's a simple surgery? The thing that I was imagining is this horrible surgery that's gonna happen. So I went back and talked to my staff, and I said, well, I'm gonna have shoulder surgery. And they said, oh my gosh, you're gonna have shoulder surgery? And it didn't help that one of my staff, her mother had a similar issue about 15 years ago. And this staffer said that, oh, my mom was in so much pain after the surgery, and it was awful, and she still has some pain today, and I don't know if you should get this surgery, but because she was under general anesthesia, they cut her up, and it was so awful. So my staff cleared at least 2 weeks. And I said, you know what, I think 2 weeks is all I need, just keep my schedule light. So 2 weeks of recovery period, and I will deal with it. So I finally booked my surgery, but after I tried to reschedule twice because I was a little bit scared. And so after rescheduling, and I said, okay, I can't tolerate this pain anymore. I'm gonna go in and have this surgery. And then I went in, and then they did local kind of, not even anesthesia. It was like, I don't even know what he did. And in about 30 minutes, he's like, we're all done. And I'm going, what are you talking about? You're all done. And he goes, we're all done. You know, we just blasted. And this is the other thing doctors do, but I don't know if they want to do it because they want to show you that it's real, that they didn't just kind of poke around in there. So they go, do you want to see it? And I said, of course I want to see it. So I looked at my calcium deposit just to make sure that it's real, because just to make sure that he actually did surgery, because I didn't feel anything. And I said, can I go back to work? And he said, well, are you in pain? And I said, no, I'm not in pain. So you can go back to work. Imagine my staff surprise when I walked into the office about an hour after my scheduled surgery, and I caught them planning the 2 weeks of no boss. And I said, no, I'm back. Fill up my schedule again. But that's what technology and medicine, that's a small example of how life-changing innovation in technology can be, as opposed to 15 years ago when it was under general anesthesia, a major surgery, to what it is now. Is just incredible. And the advances in technology and advances in medicine and the way that all these things work together to better people's lives, it's incredible. But I also tell you that story because I know some of you folks are sitting in this room and going, you were able to do all that, get the surgery, see an orthopedic surgeon, get physical therapy, get x-ray in a timely fashion. All these took just months. You were only able to do that because you live in Honolulu. Imagine individuals who live on Lanai, who live in Molokai, or Hana, or Kohala. Imagine the same person like me having the same situation and how much pain and suffering that they have to go through in order to do a minor, I'm embarrassed to call it surgery now, a minor outpatient procedure just to make my arm feel better, just so that I can do my daily activities, just to brush my teeth, just to brush my hair. Those things were so painful, and individuals around the state suffer just because they can't have access to health care. And that's why we are here, just to make sure that the things and the amenities that we get in Honolulu can be given to each and every individual, no matter where they live within our state, within our great state of Hawaii. And as Lieutenant Governor, when people ask me, what is your favorite part of your job? The favorite part of my job is to go and visit with communities. Even to come here, meet new people, just like what Lonnie said. This is the favorite part of my job because I live in urban Honolulu all my life, but I can't be a good lieutenant governor if I don't understand all the things, all the issues, all the struggles, all the difficulties people have in every part of the community. And so I take it my responsibility to go and listen, experience, find out what's going on. And the things that we take for granted in some parts of our community is not completely given or affordable to many. So for instance, if you live in Lanai, one of the first things that when I went to visit some folks in Lanai, they said, you can't be born here and you can't die here because there are basically no OB services on Lanai, none on Molokai, and dental service, and so many other services in some of our community, even on the Big Island, if you think about it. In order to get to the nearest hospital, if you live in Naalehu, it's more difficult to get to the nearest hospital as opposed to you might as well just try to fly on a different island. In order to get to Kona, in order to get to Hilo Hospital, just if you live on Naalehu, if you live on Pauilo, just to get the ambulance to go to your house, bring you back, and it's a difficult situation. And those are the things that us as individuals, as policymakers, and us as a community need to think about. What is the common denominator? The common denominator should not be looking at all the different amenities. We should look at the individuals who are in the most remote areas and how do we improve the access of those individuals. You know, one of the things I think as the thing about human beings, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from our experiences. And the thing that came out of COVID was that we learn, and we have to learn so that we don't have to go back to how it was. And the greatest thing I think that came out of COVID was about the need for connectivity. Because it wasn't just connectivity in work, it wasn't just connectivity in school, but the most essential part was it was connectivity in healthcare, with healthcare access, with telemedicine. And I see Riley Sakota in the room, who is with the Big Island County, and he's helping the state improve internet access throughout the entire state. These type of issue, and of course Doug Adams, thank you. These type of issues, even if it's about broadband, even if I'm talking about broadband, the reason why I'm talking about this is I'm going back to the theme of how everything is connected, everything gotta be working together. How we improve broadband access has relations of how we can do healthcare delivery, how we can provide to some of the remote areas, some of our rural communities, how do we connect people? So every single thing that we do as government, we cannot think of it as a linear way. We have to think of it as how we break down just from what we are doing and how we can improve exponentially, thinking about the various things that people need in the state. The other thing that became so much prominent out of COVID was mental health. Mental health and abuse situations. Imagine individuals who basically could not leave their home. And because state government and federal government told you stay at home, let's not infect the rest of the state or the country. But imagine an abusive situation. And in those situations, we have individuals who could not turn to other people. And the tragic part is during COVID, I had several conversations, many conversations with organizations, advocates who supported domestic violence survivors. And the interesting statistic was that during COVID, the number of child abuse cases, the number of domestic survivor cases decreased. The reason for that is not because of those cases decrease, it's because other people didn't have an additional eye on individuals. So for instance, in our schools, the tragedy is that a lot of times our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, and principals are the first ones to detect child abuse cases. And that's why during COVID, those cases and those issues were underreported, which became a huge problem for the state of Hawaii. One of my initiatives is called the Ready Keiki Initiative. The Ready Keiki Initiative is to ensure that all 3 and 4-year-olds have access to preschool. And you think, yeah, that's really great. We need to get kids ready to learn. But the other issue, the reason why this Ready Keiki Initiative is so important to me is when my son was a preschooler, the teacher, every parent is gonna think their child is perfect and there's nothing wrong. The teacher said, hey, you know what? I think your son should get tested because he is not at the level he is speaking just compared to the other kids. And at first I balked at it because no one wants to hear that there's something of an issue with the child. So we went to get him tested. What it came out of the test was not that, it just turned out that he was just stubborn. And it just turned out that he's a late bloomer, a typical boy. But it was reassuring to know that. But from those early intervention services, from early detection, we can catch so many individuals early on to help individuals. So the preschool program is not just about getting kids ready to learn, getting kids ready for kindergarten. It is having another set of eyes, teachers, preschool teachers, administrators, others, to have another set of eyes so that they can help individuals, they can help our youngest learners, our keiki, to foster and grow from when they're 3, when they're 4. I wanted to end with this part. All the things that we're talking about, in as much as the innovation, our different initiative, different infrastructure, different investments, they will not amount to much if we don't concentrate on workforce. Just like in our preschool system, we can build as many classrooms as we want, but if we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough educational assistants, we don't have principals, we don't have support systems, then those classrooms will just be left empty. Just like in our healthcare profession, we can provide all the new buildings, we can provide all the new equipment, but if we don't have enough physicians, we don't have enough specialized field, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough health tech, we have a shortage throughout our entire state in multitude of fields, and it's our kuleana to think about how do we lessen that gap and how do you fill that void so that we don't have shortages? Because how does Oahu or downtown Honolulu send their specialists to Puna if Oahu even is suffering from workforce? We together need to fill the void and figure out a way to increase workforce. In this situation, I want to talk about my great friend, Mark Nakashima. Some of you may know him. Mark Nakashima represented the Honoka'a Hamakua Coast for many, many years. And then he recently passed. And he and I have been friends since we were in college. So I knew him basically for the majority or super majority of my adult life. One of the things he did was he was a champion for providing access, for providing medical care. And because he represented Hamakua, Lapahoihoi, Pauilo, and some of the remote areas, he always would come to me and tell me stories of individuals who couldn't get access, who couldn't get health care. And those things, we depend on our policymakers and we depend on legislators like Kristen Kahaloa, who is sitting in this room. And we rely on them to tell us, what can we do to ensure we have better access? And it's through their efforts and working with philanthropic supporters like Benioff and others that Hilo Medical will get a huge amount of upgrades. It's individuals like her and Mark Nakashima and others who ensured that we had expansion of ambulance services, we had expansion of grow your own physicians. These are the things, these are the ideas that I am hoping that you guys put your heads together and come up so that you can talk to your policy makers and you can talk to the state agencies about what the different innovative ways that we can help to ensure that we have access throughout the state. Let me just end with this. I just wanted to mahalo each and every one of you. The fact that you are here in this room, the fact that you are committed to ensuring that we have access in medicine, the fact that you folks are committed to ensuring that we have quality care for every single one of individuals in our state of Hawaii. We can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough for everything that you folks are doing, all the commitments that you folks are doing. And on behalf of the state, I recognize so many times, the state can't do many of these things alone. And we depend on our clinics, we depend on our community healthcare, we depend on various medical professionals around the state, and we depend on many of you folks. And so mahalo for being here, mahalo for your participation, mahalo Randy for inviting me, mahalo Mohr for being here, and mahalo to all of you folks. And please have a great conference, and we look forward to continued dialogue. Mahalo nui.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. Mahalo to our elected officials. It's so great that they paid attention before they came up and actually talked to us about things that made a difference. Wonderful. I love that. I love that. Before we continue, I'd like to let all those that are standing outside know that we have quite a few seats inside, so you can come on in. Come on in. Yep. No shame. Just come right on in. And in fact, the most seats are the ones in the tables right in front of me that I promise I won't call on you because you're in the front. All those in the back, which are all my friends, I see you. For sure, I'm gonna call on you folks, you know. Anyway, yes, you folks come in the front over here. Nobody has to stand outside. We have more than enough room here. More than enough room. All right. That was really a nice presentation by the Lieutenant Governor, because I love when we have access to people in a way that they just feel like they're one of us. And I think it's important to have those people that are talking to us instead of talking over us. And we're really excited. Yeah, come. Don't worry, I won't stop the whole conference while you come and find a seat. No problem. Okay, we're gonna just continue on. Our next presenter will be providing an insider's look at navigating our healthcare future together. It is my pleasure to present Eric Schell, Board Chair of Stroudwater Associates. Let's give him a big hand.
Good morning. Aloha. How's everybody doing? Good. All right. Good. Well, thanks for having me back here. A little bit about me. I live in Portland, Maine, the original Portland. And this is not my first trip to Hawaii. Matter of fact, my first trip was in May of 2001, when critical access hospitals were relatively new. And got to go visit Molokai to see if we could get them, kind of helped out along their journey to critical access hospital. Since that time, I've been coming here at least 4 times a year, with the exception of the COVID years. And I will just say that my friends that I've met along the way here, coming here for the last 23 years, essentially, this is my second ohana. You truly are. And so Hawaii is a very special place for me, even though I am 5,500 miles away. Hawaii is a special place for me, and the friends I've met along the way, it's just extraordinary. A little bit about this presentation. It's a 3-part talk. It's a talk that starts with where's the market going and why the market's going there from my perspective. The second part of the presentation is why community and rural hospitals have so much value in that new world. And the third part of the presentation is saying, boy, if the market is going here and why we know it's going here, and our community and rural hospitals have value in this new world, then what is the means, how do we get there and be successful? And so, again, this is a talk that I first created probably 10 years ago, and I update it every week. I just gave it at a board retreat in Lake Tahoe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, to a health system there that's kind of right in the shadows of Kaiser, which was, fascinating, absolutely fascinating environment. But it keeps getting updated, and this is the version that I've just updated as of last week. So that's a little bit about the presentation. Couple qualifications. I'm, every good accountant, as you see from my bio, likes to qualify everything that we talk about. So the first qualification is my slides. They are horrible. The only people that are going to read them are the people that just came to the front on Lonnie's request. But I like to say that I use them as a reference guide, that you can take these at some point in the future if you want to look back on them. There's enough content in there that you can kind of see where we're going. So that's qualification number one. Qualification number two. It may appear that this is heavily finance related. And you're going to say, yeah, Eric, you're a CPA, you're an MBA. Of course it's going to be finance. And for those who know me, Eric, you wanted to be an accountant in the 10th grade. Did I mention I wanted to be an accountant in the 10th grade? I haven't seen the run for the coffee. But anyway, so there's a reason why this has so heavily financed, and we're going to get there and explain why that is. And then I think you'll see why the presentation is structured the way it is. I think we're just going to go from there. So how's that? We're going to start now. And I like to start, from the ground floor and start with the market and the market transformation. Starting with back, 4 years ago, when those in the healthcare field were face down dealing with COVID. And almost our world stopped as we were dealing with the patients and COVID and all of the ramifications that COVID took on us. And all of that time, not only was the market moving, but I would suggest to you it was advancing at just an amazing rate. And I've got a number of slides here to justify why I think that the market has this transformation is accelerating. And it has to do with some of kind of the cost of healthcare. Well, and I'll tell you why I think that has an effect. It has to do with some new market entrants, why those new markets have come in, who those new market entrants in, and what do you think their position is? The third is a little bit about some of the Medicare Advantage. For those of us in the hospital and physician practice business, Medicare Advantage is a disaster. Sorry for the insurance companies that are here, I'm sorry, but it's a challenge for the industry. Changing where patient volume is going and why that's important. And then finally, where's the government in all of this? And so these are some of the things that I think are important that show the market transformation. The first one, and I'm wondering if, let's see, Ross, can you read this for me? Where's Ross? Oh, he already. Anyway, what this is saying is that the cost of healthcare for a family of four has gone from $5,800. It's the light blue line in the graphic, the light blue line that's going up like this. Started at about $5,800 back in 1999. It is now in 2023, $24,800. Just this morning in Modern Healthcare, the 2024 results came out, and healthcare insurance for a family of four is now exceeded $25,000. There was a 7% increase between 23 and 24. Now think about that. The median household income in the United States is somewhere around $60,000. And so general economic theory says that when the price of a good or service goes up, two things generally happen, right? Economic theory. The first is that demand for that good or service is going to go down. The second piece of it is the supply of new entrants coming in to provide that good or service will increase to ultimately balance the price back to the marginal cost of producing that good or service. Now I'm talking like an accountant, right? So if we break those into two pieces, let's look at the demand side, right? The demand, again, demand says as price goes up, the demand for a good or service goes down. But in steps our employers in a tight labor market that are subsidizing this accelerating cost. The second thing is the federal government with the exchanges and the subsidies that they're creating. And to some degree, we've kept a false demand curve for this good or service, keeping demand above what a free market would suggest. Now let's take a look at the supply side, because this becomes much more interesting. Again, the theory, economic theory says as the price of good or service comes out, new entrants are going to come in to provide that good or service. One, because they can make a profit because there's so much money in the system and increasing more money in the system. So that's the big one. But two is they see an opportunity to make money. And so, that kind of opportunity for increased supply came along with this incredible revolution in technology, primarily over the last 50 years. And what this has enabled is those organizations that consider themselves technology-based companies are looking at healthcare for which they think lacks the technology expertise and savvy as some of these technology-based companies. They see a business opportunity. And you may recognize some of the names of these companies. Anyone ever heard of Amazon? This is just, and I know you can't read it. I can't even read it from here, so I don't even know what we're going to do with this. What happened when you turn 60 and all of a sudden you can't see? But this is just the acceleration of Amazon. Their acquisition of VillageMD for $3.9 billion to establish a primary care base. Their release of Amazon Pharmacy to provide pharmacy online. The release of the pill pack, and now having that eligible for all Medicare patients. And the list just goes on and on and on. The executive VP in charge of healthcare for Amazon essentially says that our kids are going to look back on the way we accessed healthcare today and scratch their head and said, "What? You did what?" They believe the industry has to be transformed that significantly to the point where our kids won't recognize how we accessed it. One of the big things that they did was, this was 2 years ago, they came out with something called One Medical for Prime. Anyone familiar with One Medical for Prime? Has anyone used One Medical for Prime? Interesting. So what they came out with, this was on November 9th, I believe it was 2022, they rolled out with this big offering and said for $99 a year or $9 a month, a subscription fee, you can have access to primary care physicians 24/7 through telehealth anywhere in the United States as long as you have a cell phone coverage. 24/7. And with their acquisition of One Medical, which is a large nationwide, primarily a primary care medical group, where if you're close enough, if there's a One Medical office, you can go and access primary care in person. So I thought, and this is the way they marketed it, 24/7 access is the big one, anywhere you are in the United States. My concern here for the traditional healthcare providers is that, one, it's skimming off some of our base primary care, some of the low-hanging fruit. Second is with the pharmacy and the pharmacy through online Prime, is it could take away some of our 340B benefit within our provider organizations. It's a discount drug program where safety net providers can kind of benefit financially from. So One Medical for Prime rolled out in 2 years ago in November. I thought this was going to be a big deal. I think I've seen the pickup in it slower than I would have expected. And I think it's just one of those, the law of innovation diffusion. Where it just takes time for this to take on. But stay tuned on that one. Walmart made a big play into healthcare. At one point, they had opened 53 super centers with primary care. And then in April of this year, they decided, we're getting out of business of primary care. Primary care is hard. We thought we could get into it and make a buck. And then they said, oops, sorry, guys, park's closed. and they got out of it. And what was interesting is what happened next, where Humana, a large insurance company, has stepped in and said, oh, we'll open up your super centers. And I ask you to think, why does an insurance company want access to primary care groups set up in Walmarts around the United States? And I'm going to build on this here in a second. So Walmart, interesting start and stop, but now Humana steps in and picks up the primary care practices. Walgreens did a very similar move as Walmart, except for Walgreens spent a heck of a lot more money. They spent $5.2 billion acquiring a large nationwide Village MD. Did you hear me? $5.2 billion. Followed several months later by the acquisition of Summit City Health for $9 billion. So Walgreens invested $14 billion in building primarily a primary care platform, nationwide platform. And then that was under the prior CEO of the program. New CEO came in, Walgreens started losing money, and they said, uh-oh, we're in trouble here. We can't make money in primary care. They took a $6 billion write-down in their investment in Village MD and Summit City, and closed half of the practices. Now, again, Walgreens, large pharmacy, that had acquired primary care, and all of a sudden realized, oops, we can't make money in primary care. Very different than CVS. Now, CVS is one of these technology-based companies that CVS is Aetna. Aetna, CVS are one and the same. And so CVS said, hey, we're going to make, they invested, they're close to 1,000, health centers that they had opened, health hubs. They created an online virtual offering. They made investments in housing. And that was before the real money started flowing. They then, about a year and a half ago, acquired Signify Health. Signify Health they acquired it for about $8 billion. Signify Health was a large home health company that had just acquired Caravan Health, which was a large accountable care organization with a population-based platform. And so CVS acquires them. Now think about what CVS is doing here. They're acquiring home health and a population health platform. They then spent, several months later, $10.6 billion in acquiring Oak Street Health, which was a large nationwide primarily primary care practice with some medical specialties as well. And they just announced, 2 weeks ago that they were also, like Walgreens, in a cost-cutting move. They announced late last week that they were laying off, 1,100 members of their team. But this morning in Modern Healthcare, there was an article saying, but we are growing our Oak Street Health Clinic practices. We're going to continue to grow them. Okay, so what's the difference between CVS/Aetna and Walgreens and Walmart as it relates to investment in primary care? Where these two are, CVS is growing and the others are not. They're actually shrinking their primary care practice. Tell me it has something to do with payment and in the opportunity to create savings on the insurance side, and I'd say you're probably closing in on it. So CVS, very different. The other thing I just want to point out, if you think about CVS/Aetna's play, they've invested $10.6 billion in physician practices. They've invested $8 billion primarily in home care with a population health platform. Who are they not investing in? They're not investing in hospitals. And why do we ask? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. That's just a leading question. I'm trying to keep you interested in this talk. Then you got United Healthcare. United Healthcare, for anyone that doesn't know, is the largest employer of physicians. The last thing I said that they were up to about 70,000 employed physicians through their Optum subsidiary. They also spent $5.4 billion acquiring LHC Home Care. Used to be Louisiana Healthcare or Home Care. They went nationwide, and when they went so that they bought the home care, and if that wasn't enough, they're in the process of acquiring Amedisys for $3.something billion. I can't read it. But $3 billion. So now they're spending $8 billion in home care. Who knows what the price tag for Optum was? But for 56,000 physicians originally, and now they're up to 70,000. They keep adding practices around the nation. It was a big ticket number. So think about United Insurance. What is their play? Do you think it has something to do with about payment and incentives? Likely, very likely. So anyway, very interesting play. And then you got some more of the kind of more, I would say, traditional players. Rising Health. Rising Health is the outcome of Kaiser, and we've got, oh boy, the rotten fruit is about to fly. Rising is the outcome of Kaiser acquiring Geisinger in north central Pennsylvania, that has a very similar platform, large insurer that has primary care and some hospital settings. Danville, Pennsylvania being there. I drove right by there last Sunday on my way back from Penn State. Anyway, and then they just announced the potential or the acquisition of Cone Health in North Carolina with a expansion plan over the next 5 years to acquire those health systems that have kind of aligned vision for healthcare. And I look at aligned vision for healthcare, and it's payment and provider coming together under one umbrella, is how I see it. So I look at potential candidates in the future being those like Intermountain Healthcare or UPMC in Western Pennsylvania, or Presbyterian Health System in New Mexico. These types of systems where they think about aligning payment and provider under one umbrella. Again, set to transform healthcare. So again, the technology revolution enabling new types of providers. We've allowed it because of the cost of healthcare has gone to the point where new entrants have come in, and the new entrants are either, kind of technology-based or organizations that are advancing with technology, like Rising, right here. So to really, not to summarize this, but what I just wanted to kind of stop and share was over the last 3 years, the different investment in primary care. And exclusive of the Optum arrangement, we talk about some of that. I mean, so some of these digital health companies offering primary care, a $500 million investment, United Healthcare and Optum, they come together. Walgreens, the $5.2 billion acquisition, that's in Q3, Q4 2021. Carbon Health Banks, another $350 million from Wall Street, private equity around investments in primary care. And then the dollars really started going up when we started seeing some of the CVS acquisition of Oak Street Health, the Walgreens acquisition. And when you add it all up, I've estimated, again, outside of the Optum acquisition by United Healthcare, somewhere between $40 and $45 billion investment in primary care. Tell me, why is Wall Street so interested in primary care that they're spending the kind of dollars that they're investing? What is Wall Street's play? I got an A or B. A, Wall Street has seen the plight of primary care physicians being undercompensated relative to their specialist peers, and they want to get primary care equal. All medical staff should be equal. Wait, you haven't even heard option B. Okay, here's option B. It's a little easier to understand. There's a buck to be made. Where is the buck to be made in primary care? Walgreens just got out of it. Walmart just got out of it saying we can't make money in primary care. Oh, but wait, United has gotten into it. CVS Aetna has gotten into it. What's going on here? Wall Street has figured out that as the payment system evolves, primary care, through their patient attribution, primary care that was once the lost leader, which is a joke, I hate when people say that, was once the lost leader, is now the revenue centers of the new payment world. My sense is that while Walgreens and Walmart have gotten out or are getting out, is because the market has not moved fast enough to transform payment. The market has been slow, and we'll talk about why that is here in a minute. So anyway, lots of things going on here, led by that huge increase in costs over the last 25 years, opening up technology-based companies to come into our healthcare setting to make a buck. Anyway, the next is just Medicare Advantage. I just want to touch on this briefly to say Medicare Advantage is a challenge for many of us. I travel around rural America. I speak at conferences, state, national conferences. This is the number one issue that I'm hearing from my friends in the provider roles. The deny, the delay, and it's just a challenge. I don't want to comment on Hawaii. I'm not aware of the specifics, but I was at a conference a year ago in Tennessee, and the Tennessee hospitals literally said, if we don't fix Medicare Advantage, half of us are going to close. It was that bad. The good news is MedPAC, which is the Medicare Payment Advisory Commission. They advise Congress on Medicare payment policy. They did a study. They've presented a study, came out in January, was presented in their March 15th report, essentially saying, these Medicare Advantage plans, if you look at this chart, and it's just, this goes back to 2007 to 2024. And what happens is Medicare Advantages take, they get a payment amount, a per member per month from the Medicare Trust Fund. Generally, it's tied to inflation. And that's what you see in the blue. The inflation was the amount of payment from the Medicare Trust Funds or actually the increase in payment related to just medical inflation. The orange that you'll see, the orange bar is the excess costs that the Medicare Advantage plans have received from the Medicare Trust Fund because they've been able to show their patients are more sick. 6.2% first year one, 2% year two. So in the first 2 years, someone enrolls in Medicare Advantage plans, they're 8.2% sicker. And the Medicare Advantage plans get higher payment for sicker patients. The next, the light gray is the amount that has to do, it's kind of reverse selection. But it's reverse selection because the Medicare Advantage plans target the healthy, and then once they get them into the plan, they're sicker. So when you add up, and this was the MedPAC, their summary report that was released earlier this year. If you add up the orange and the light gray, the access funds the Medicare Trust Fund has paid to the MedPAC or the Medicare Advantage plans is over $500 billion during this time period. I say that as good news. The good news is because somebody's on it now, and it's MedPAC, and MedPAC advises Congress on payment policy. So somebody's starting to pay attention to this stuff. The bad news from this is that was reported in the study that the Medicare Advantage plans have now grown to 52% of the total Medicare eligible beneficiaries. A report I just read 2 weeks ago in Becker's or Fierce or one of those, that number is now 55%. And if you go back in 2021, Medicare set a goal. Their goal was 100% of Medicare beneficiaries in either a Medicare Advantage plan, essentially handing off the, quote, risk to them, or in a Medicare alternative payment model like an accountable care organization. What's happened in those last 4 years is the number of beneficiaries in an accountable care organization has remained flat between 10 and 11 million, while the Medicare Advantage plans are going through the roof. And I would suggest to you, this is on us. This is on us. Are you even familiar with what an accountable care organization is? Anyone not know? Okay, an accountable care organization was set up as part of the Affordable Care Act. And what it said was that for healthcare provider organizations can accumulate at least 5,000 Medicare beneficiaries, you can say, hey, we want to be an ACO. So the government will go back, CMS will go back and look at the spend for those 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 Medicare beneficiaries going back the last 3 years. And let's just say that spend was $10,000. Medicare will give you essentially a budget of $10,000 plus some inflation going forward. That will be your budget. So January 1st, we become an ACO. Medicare gives us a budget. Everybody in the 5,000 patients gets a $5,000 budget. And so patient, you go into the hospital, you receive care. You go to your doctor, you receive care. And all of the costs at the end of the year added up. And if we are able to care for that patient for $8,000 and our budget's $10,000, we've essentially created savings of which the government shares with us, often 50%, let's just say 50%, but there's different ranges. And this is something, again, that rolled out in 2011 out of the regulations of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And right now, again, we have about 11 million Medicare beneficiaries in ACO. So that's how an ACO works. It's a form of population payment, a population, a budgeted amount applied to a population. So anybody, sorry for those of you who are advanced in ACOs, that's just the simplest form. Anyway, but the government has literally said we want 100% of our beneficiaries in either an ACO or in Medicare Advantage plan. ACOs remain flat the last 4 years. Medicare Advantage plans are going through the roof. And they are trouble to us in the provider industry. Is that a fair statement? Oh-ha. I'm a lefty, so it's got to come out of this hand. Anyway. So again, The next thing I want to talk about is volume. I want to talk a little bit about volume and why volume's important. We live predominantly in a fee-for-service payment system. And when I mean that, it's price, what we get paid on a unit cost basis, times the units of sick care services that we provide is our revenue, right? Price times volume, sick care volume, is revenue. And so volume is it's half that equation. And what's happened, and frankly, if you take this back even 10 years beyond or 20 years back, this is looking at Medicare discharges per thousand across the United States. And you can see just between 2012 and 2022, a pretty significant decline. Again, if you take this back to 2000, that number was probably started off at somewhere around 125 or 130. So inpatient volume is coming out of the system. A lot of it's moving to pharmaceutical care or observation care. And so again, price times volume is net revenue. Inpatient volume is coming out of the system. That's a challenge for us. Oh, went the wrong way. Don't go back. A couple of years ago, the American Hospital Association came out with a study. And in the study, what they looked at was outpatient volume. And what they noted in their study, this was based on 2018 data, it was for the first time in 35 years, outpatient volume is coming down. But it wasn't outpatient volume across the industry. It was outpatient volume in a hospital setting. And if you look at the third bullet, which anyone past the second row can't see, what it says is that it's not likely that the volume has gone down, the outpatient volume has gone down. It's in the hospital setting where it's gone down because of the new competitive forces that we've just talked about. Okay, so outpatient volume. And if we look at it, this is a look at emergency room volume, which is a good proxy for outpatient volume. And what we saw here is that, we saw that huge decline with COVID. But for the most part, in 2022, most of us in the provider industry had recovered from COVID completely. But as an industry, emergency room volume is down. It'll be interesting. The 2023 data should be out really soon. It'll be interesting to see what's happening here. But again, outpatient. So now you got inpatient volume in a hospital setting going down. You got outpatient volume in a hospital setting down. Price times volume is revenue. What do you do to keep revenue? That's easy. You go to the insurance companies and you just ask for more money. Our volume came down 10%. Please pay us 15% more and we can take care of your patients. Not likely. Each year, MedPAC, we talked about Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, they do a study and they look at Medicare margins in hospitals. So Medicare margin, essentially Medicare profit in hospitals. And the line that's most relevant is the gray line, the one and below. And what you see is that the high water mark for Medicare margin was 2012, 2013 at about negative 4%, or negative 4%. We saw that decline. We saw that decline, between 2013 all the way to 2017. It came back up. Some of the coming back up was benefits of 340B and the COVID funding. And then it took a precipitous fall in 2022. So let's just talk a little bit about what's going on here. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, had a provision that said what we're going to do is we're going to pay hospitals, we're going to give them a price increase at inflation minus 0.75%. And the minus 0.75% is because we're the government and we can. So in the first year, we get inflation, but it's off by 0.75%. The next year, this amount has now accumulated for a 2-year total of 1.5% behind inflation. The next year, it's 2.25. Beyond that, the math is too complicated for accountants. But for 8 years, there was this taking away of price relative to cost. Back to our so that trucks along here. We saw the uptick with COVID, and then in 2022, we went to record lows, minus 12% Medicare margin. Anyone remember how this happened? Anyone remember the period between October 1st, 2021 and March 31st, 2022? What happened? Put yourself in that environment. I remember I was in an airport flying home from Colorado on April 1st. And actually, it was before that. It was before that. And it was amazing. The airport was full. People were traveling again. There was people were spending the COVID funds. They were out there. But at the same time, we had the Great Resignation. We had supply chain issues, transportation issues. This is basic laws of supply and demand. We had the demand for new goods and services coming out of COVID. We wanted to spend our money. We wanted to have a good time after 2 years of challenges. So we had people wanting to spend their money. We had supply chain issues with staffing and all these things. We had price go up 10% in 1 6-month period of time. Is that fair? Does that resonate with people? That happened. It wasn't inflation. Well, all right. It was inflation, but it was just a mismatch of supply and demand for a 6-month period of time until we could right-size the supply chain. But what happened was the government, Medicare, set the payment rate for hospitals and physicians just before this happened, and they set it at 2.3%. Think about that. So the price increase for 2022 was 2.3% by your biggest payer, and cost just went up 10%. You have a price to cost differential of 7.5% or something like that. And guess what? That's locked into our payment system today. And so that was why we saw that huge decrease, to the point where MedPAC came out with their March 15th report this year and recommended to Congress that payment be at the statutory rate plus another 1.5%, because somebody finally ran the numbers and said, we killed our hospitals in 2022 and we've done nothing to fix this. Back to price times volume is net revenue in a fee-for-sick care payment system. When price relative to cost is down now over the last 10 years by probably 11 or 12%, what do we do to maintain revenue? Well, it's easy. We just grow volume, right? Well, maybe it's not so easy because we just talked about that. And all of a sudden, the pressures of a fee-for-sick care payment system are starting to mount. And that's what I want to, and we're going to, I'm building the case for talking about why payment is really important, how we think. And so Dr. Liz Fowler, she was the deputy or CMI director of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation. Back in a conference in April of 2021, she said a couple things. She said, we need to find a way to bring everyone along in terms of payment transformation. We can't have fee-for-service remain a comfortable place to stay. That was her first statement. The second thing she said is we have to have a clear path for innovators around payment progression, but we also have to make alternative payment models a not one size fits all. We have to recognize that there's differences in the way healthcare is delivered and kind of modernize alternative payment models like the ACOs, the accountable care organizations that we talked about. So if you're the government, what is your greatest ability to affect making fee-for-service become very uncomfortable? Where's your lever? How about this? This was the pay increase that hospitals received in 2022 when their costs went up 10%. Again, MedPAC recommended this year that for next year, CMS increased payment, the statutory amount, plus another 1%. Do you know what CMS did? They said, no, we're going to pay you at the statutory rate. We don't care that you guys have had this incredible price to cost differential in this fee-for-service world. We are going to turn the temperature on the pot on the stove with that little frog swimming around. We're going to keep turning it up until more you switch and swap into an alternative payment model. How do you make, not one, these alternative payment models, not a one size fits all? Well, you do something like this. You roll out regulation that says, hey, for you rural hospitals that have struggled getting into ACOs, we're going to give you $250,000 up front to invest in your capital. We're going to make them risk-free for up to 7 years. And for the first 8 quarters of your 5-year participation period, we're going to advance you somewhere, advanced share savings between $20,000 and $50,000 a quarter. Jump in if you want. And we're going to continue, because we're going to continue to turn up the heat on payment. And so, it is our fundamental belief that this transition away from fee-for-service towards population-based payment systems is going to occur. We are going to have to figure out how to be more efficient, do more with less, or do better with less. Clinical integration, coming together is going to be important. We're going to get to that in about 3 minutes. But the number one thing I've learned in the last 10 years is anything we do from an organization or a delivery model perspective, it has to be fundamentally flexible because we see this coming, but it's taken a long time to get here. Some of Wall Street gave up on it. And so, that's kind of the call to summary on this. Now we're going to start building the case why rural and community hospitals have incredible value in this new world. Starting off with some definitions. The fundamental economic driver or competitive driver in the future is going to be patient value. Patient value being defined as cost or quality divided by cost applied to a population. Anything we could do to increase quality, holding cost constant, adds value. Anything we can do to drive down cost, holding quality constant, adds value. And that patient value is what organizations will be competing upon in the future. Let's talk about a second definition, accountable care. Not accountable care as an ACO, but an accountable care as a payment system. And an accountable care as a payment system is something that's defined as this. It's a payment system where provider organizations monetize the value. In other words, they financially benefit from improving quality, reducing costs, and applying it to a population. About what I just said there. An accountable care as a payment system in which provider organizations financially benefit from improving quality, reducing costs, and applying it to a population. And frankly, there's a lot of those that currently exist today. Anywhere from value-based payment, the purchasing program, accountable care organizations, the entire provider-based health plans, the Kaisers of the world, where they can improve the quality, reduce the cost, they monetize the benefit of it. That residual claim on health is something that the provider organizations benefit from. And it's different this time. Some of you in the room are old enough like me to remember the managed care era. And if we think about the managed care era, and so people are saying, hey, Eric, we lived through managed care. It went away. This is going to go away too. Just give it another year or two. This whole effort around movement towards accountable care payment. And this is what I would argue it's different this time. The first is that we've got the incentives right now. By definition, an accountable care payment system is where providers monetize the value of increasing quality, reducing cost. Let me ask you this. Who has the greatest ability to affect quality and cost to a population? Provider organizations or insurance organizations? Providers. Who had the incentives in the managed care era that when provider organizations increased the quality, reduced the cost, who took the benefit? Insurance companies. We had the incentives all wrong. We finally figured those out in this new world. The government's all in this time. Remember, we used to do all that gatekeeper per member per month, withholds. And we did it for what, 20, 30% of our population? Because the government was sitting on the sidelines. The government is now driving this. So the second thing, I believe, we're here to stay here. Agreed upon evidence-based protocols. We have a science now to make medical decision-making that we did not have in the late 1990s, mid to late 1990s. And finally, going back is not an option. I look at when healthcare insurance premiums now exceed $25,000 for a family of 4, and we're living in this supply-driven, fee-for-sick care environment. Until the provider organizations take the responsibility for both cost and quality, this cost escalation is going to continue to go up to the point where someone else is going to take it in, whether it's the managed care plans or the Medicare Advantage plans, someone else is going to take it on our behalf. I believe it is up to us to solve this problem, we in this room. All right, so here's where I think community and rural hospitals have incredible value. This came to me, I was reading the Affordable Care Act regs on my porch back in fall of 2011, and there was one line that jumped right out at me. And I said, this is why community and rural hospitals have incredible value in this new world. That one line said this: a primary care physician can belong to one accountable care organization. Hospitals and specialists can belong to multiple accountable care organizations. That one line told me rural and community hospitals have an upside value in this new world. And now you're scratching your head saying, that's pretty weird, Eric. Where'd you come up with that? Well, give you a little background. I'm an Arthur Anderson trained CPA. So it probably has to do with money, right? I look at today, we think about business today, you have revenue centers and cost centers. Cost centers, to some degree, can be cut up, spread around, chopped up, diced up, whatever you want to do and spread around. Revenue centers, on the other hand, unless you're an Arthur Anderson trained CPA and we're involved in Enron, revenue centers really have to be directed at one spot. What this just told me is in the future, as this rolls out, your primary care providers are your revenue centers in this new world, and your specialist technology and bricks and mortar become cost centers. Now, we need both. Both are equally as important, but the dynamic is going to change. Wall Street has bet $45 billion that primary care is going to be the revenue centers of the new world. That's why I believe that rural and community hospitals that have fundamentally aligned with primary care, have high quality, which many of you have, and are relatively efficient, have incredible value in this new world. Eric, you've been talking about payment forever. This is why I think payment, we should all be paying attention to this. If you believe in the premise that form follows function, follows payment. And what do I mean by that? If you think about the fee-for-sick care payment world, there are three functional imperatives in that world. Three things. And if you can do these three things in isolation, you can be successful. Number one, if you can manage your sick care volume. Number two, you can manage your price that you get paid. And number three, you can manage your expenses. You as an individual organization, whether it's a physician practice, a home health department, a hospital, you can be successful in fee-for-service. It was about market share. And so the form that has evolved out of this fee-for-service payment system is one, it's a disaggregated delivery system. Turn that around now to a population-based payment system, that says, we are going to provide the care for the 66,000 people of the West Hawaii service area. Let me ask you this, can you do that in isolation? Or do we need to come together, hospital with medical staff, hospital medical staff with post-acute care, with public health, with diet and nutrition, because it's about that residual claim on health. If we get paid a population of $10,000 and we can deliver that care for $8,000, the residual claim on health is $2,000 and that becomes profit. You see where I'm going here? And so the form, and the other piece is you got to aggregate enough lives. And generally the number you hear is between 80,000 and 100,000 lives to diversify insurance risk. And so the payment system of the future is an aggregating payment system. Organizations will come together, again, with all of the different entities, post-acute care, hospitals, medical staff, public health, diet and nutrition, hospice. I put that, here, I got one, nutrition, right? I'll know when we figure this out. I have a daughter who's a registered dietitian. So all the hard class, she could have gone pre-med. She wanted to be a dietitian. She's still on dad's payroll at 27 years old. I'll know when this industry's figured this out when she comes off my payroll. So, oh man. So is, just to let somebody know at the conference, the battery is running low on my computer. Maybe that's a clue. All right. So payment. I look at payment as if payment affects what we do and what we look like in doing it, and payment is no longer static, don't we have to start thinking about that as an input to future decision making? I would suggest yes, and that's why I think payment is front and center, and that's why I've focused a lot of it in this presentation on that. So what's payment going to look like? Centers for Medicare, Medicaid Innovation, they came up with this several years ago. They said payment's going to evolve. It's going to start off on the left and the orange. Fee-for-service, no tie-ins to quality and utilization. The next bar, fee-for-service with now tie-ins to quality and utilization, a step towards population payment. The next thing, alternative payment models. Alternative payment models built on a fee-for-service architecture. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And the third one is a population-based payment system on a population-based architecture. The evolution of payment. And here's why I'm known as the shaky bridge guy. Sorry to do this to you. After 1,000 words, this picture will be worth 1,000 words. So this to me explains where we are as an industry. If you look at the pillar on the left, fee for service, no tie-ins to quality and utilization, it was a beautiful payment system because the more sick care you did, the more money you made and everybody's happy. We loved blizzards in the Northeast because people would slip and fall and break their hip. This was a good thing. But with price relative to cost going down, with volume coming out of the hospital industry, all of a sudden this pillar starts to smolder. Way on the far right is a pillar that is a great pillar. It's a pillar set that's payment and delivery completely aligned. The more healthcare you do, the less sick care you do, the better you are from a financial perspective. But we can't just step over there. And here's why it's going to take time. First, it's going to take time because we don't have a healthcare system. We have an incredible sick care system. And the reason we don't have a healthcare system is because anything we do today to improve the health of our community gets CEOs and CFOs of provider organizations fired. So it's going to take time for... Was this the hook? I just got the hook. And in conclusion, again. Okay. So the point I want to make is, so go back to the prior slide around payment transformation, right? You have the far pillar on the left, fee for service. That was the pillar on the left, that orange column from the prior slide. The next is fee for service with tie-ins to quality and utilization. To me, that was if you go this far away on the shaky bridge, your feet are above the crocodiles or jellyfish or whatever you want to call them down there. Your feet are tiger sharks, I think I was told to say. Your feet are still above those. The next payment pillar, alternative payment models built on a fee-for-service architecture, that is your feet right above the crocodiles. And the feet are right above the crocodiles because, again, everything you do to improve health of your community, it destroys your financial performance. Until the point when you start to evolve to that fourth pillar, population payment on a population-based infrastructure. I look at that as where revenue is either premium dollar or population-based payment. Where you choose to invest healthcare and sick care resources is to optimize that residual claim on health. So we as an industry we've recognized the smoldering of pillar one. We've stepped onto the shaky bridge because the heat's too much on the pillar that once was a great pillar. What do we do now? What do we do now as an industry? This is the $4.5 trillion question that, for the most part, nobody has figured out. I've worked with Vermont the last couple of years. I consider Vermont the most advanced towards population-based payment in the United States. They have a one-state ACO. 50% of payment come in through that ACO. Each of the 13 hospitals in that state can decide the payment model they want, whether full capitation or global budget or they can decide the payment. And do you know where Vermont is? They are 2 inches ahead of Hawaii. And it's a tough decision. And it comes down to this. Is if we advance further, it's going to get rougher before it gets better. And we've got to think about how to solve that. We've got to think about how the time frame in that 2028 is as short as possible to advance towards the next step. And so several years ago, we came up with this I call it the transition framework, and you can't read any of it. Let me just explain what it's doing. Organizational strategy. Those sit in the front row can see this. You know why I sit in the front row? It controls my ADD. Otherwise, I'm all over the place. Anyway, what this is saying is payment is going to evolve over the time. That's the x-axis. I mean, right there. That's the x-axis. Payment is going to evolve over time across that shaky bridge payment transformation. So it's going to evolve. This is the payment. Think about it as payment evolution over time. There are 3 strategic areas organizations have to address and address simultaneously. The first is they've got to transform the sick care system. They've got to right-size it and improve the efficiency of it. There are 3 initiatives going down the first 3 rows to transform sick care. We have to create health care. That's the blue bar in the middle. And we've got to think about that as crawl today, walk, run, sprint. We do not want to come out of the chute sprinting because we close our hospitals, we close our provider organizations, our physician practices, our home health divisions, whatever they are, hospice. So we've got to think about creating healthcare, but don't want to do it too quickly. Crawl, walk, run, sprint across the payment. And then we've got to pick up and proactively move payment, because if we create healthcare, if we transform our sick care system and we don't pick up and move payment, we're in trouble. The orange bar coming down, the orange bar coming up, that's the strike point. When the initiative hits the orange bar, it's a do. And if you don't do, you don't go buy 200, you don't go past go, you don't collect $200, you're on the outside looking in. So the first initiative, top, improve operating efficiencies, quality at the highest level to be able to compete in proactive engagement of patients. That's what that step says, and we got to do that today. The next is coming together, systems coming together and aligning with primary care as the revenue centers of the new world. If we don't come together with primary care, by the time the payment system gets out to that column right over the shaky bridge, or provider organizations are in trouble. We've got to fundamentally align. The next one is coming together in large systems to take out big chunks of fixed costs, to right-size our sick care system. But that doesn't have to be done till 2030 or beyond. That's how those 3 initiatives are how we transform sick care. Around creating healthcare, think of it as building infrastructure today to move to start networking and ultimately bring insurance, working more closely with the insurance companies, creating new partnerships with insurance companies, with the insurance function to bring payment and delivery under one umbrella. The last is moving payment up from the top. Right now, there's all types of incentives in the fee-for-service world for improving the health of a community, whether they be annual wellness visits, annual physicals, kind of chronic care management, behavioral health management, all types of payment systems to get paid today for population health initiatives. We also have, many of us have self-insured health plans. We have an at-risk population, either today or 1 year removed, that we can do things around engaging our own employees and their dependents in our health system and get the financial benefit, that residual claim on health. Move up from the bottom row to the bottom, second one to the bottom. This is about low risk ACOs and those types of things. And as we move up, The third row up is coming together to take on fuller risk in partnership with insurance companies. But in the end, when sick care, health care, and payment come under one umbrella, you have the large provider-based health plans of the future. And you're starting to see these populate all over the United States now, where the big systems are investing in and acquiring insurance-type functions. So let me keep going because I promise you we'll get out of here. So a couple, it's just that row one. Here's just some bullets around how to think about improving operational efficiency. The number one opportunity, and it's an opportunity for everyone here on the Big Island, is to maintain access to volume. Volume is the biggest driver of efficiency. It's a bigger driver of efficiency than cost. How do we want to think about it? Because 85% of our costs are fixed or step fixed costs. Anything that we do to grow volume dilutes fixed costs over more units of service and improves our efficiency. Revenue cycle services, expenses, physician practices, effective organizational design, all opportunities. I can't stress enough proactive patient engagement. Proactive patient engagement. What are we doing to be, are we acting like our dentist? Are we acting like our veterinarian? Think about that. That is, to me, what the number one opportunity. Where is our quality program? Are we able, through our patient experience scores, to compete with everybody around? So this is the dark green. This is HCAP scores. Dark green means you're the best of any hospital we compared to. This happens to be a picture from a critical access hospital in Western Massachusetts. The hospital was built in 1928. It's the old TB hospital, at the highest point in the town. Still, half their inpatient unit is still in the 1928 wing of this hospital. They have the highest quality scores in the state of Massachusetts. Quality is a strategic priority for this organization. They can compete with anybody. Alignment with primary care. I want to stress the importance of this because if anything that hopefully you took away from this presentation is the value of primary care and how it's growing as the payment system evolves. And so number one, I look at your primary care and frankly any member of your medical staff right now using Stephen Covey and these models of dependence, dependent your 5-year-old, independent your 18-year-old, and interdependent your 26-year-old. I look at any member of your medical staff, and in this case, primarily your primary care is fundamentally independent. And what we want to do is seek a higher level of relationship through what I've seen work best is functional relationship, contractual relationship, and the most important, governance relationship. And if you can establish the three-legged stool of alignment for each of your either employed primary cares, community primary cares, or community health center primary care, if you can create that bond of governance, function, and contracts, you have a bond that you can step forward with. And so I believe that primary care is alignment is absolutely critical, and it's the next must-have to advance payment. A rationalized service area. Coming together with large systems to take out big chunks of fixed costs. I like to think of there's that same opportunity around governance, function, alignment to move from dependent to independent to interdependent. And let me say something really important around Stephen Covey in these models of dependency. It's impossible for an organization to go from dependent to interdependent. A lot of people tell me, they say, hey, we're losing $2 million. What's my affiliation strategy? And I say, your affiliation strategy is to break even next year. Because until you can have that, you cannot establish a true interdependent relationship. These are just some of the payment system. Again, we talked about these, the fee-for-service quality and utilization incentives. I believe this is the biggest opportunity right now in front of us that our healthcare system has sub-optimized. I tried to get I tried to get a doctor's visit. Where did we jump to there? I'm almost done. We're done in 2 minutes, so we're going to almost be back on track. 2 years ago, every year I get a sinus infection. I know it happens, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and for the last 4 years, I generally just call my buddy. He's a dentist. He lives down the street. He calls in a prescription. Isn't that what we all do? Sorry, Nicole. But this time I said, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to call my doctor, who happens to be a friend of mine. I'm going to call his office, and I'm going to get a prescription the right way. So I called the office, and they said, I'm sorry, Mr. Shell. We haven't seen you here in 3 years. You're not part of our panel anymore. And I said, okay, so what are we going to do? And they said, well, we have to see you, but we can get you in 2 weeks. Well, that's not going to work for me. I ended up calling my dentist buddy. But anyway, Lou Holtz has a saying, you point a finger, 3 point back. I'm going to take 3 back at me for not being more proactive. I just turned 60 years old. I should go in and get a physical every year, at least every other year. Staying out of my doctor's office for 3-4 years, probably not the right thing to do. I'll take blame. But where were you? Where were you practice as I was about to roll off your panel, calling me and saying, hey, you knucklehead, you're 60 years old, get in here? Where is that? Where is all of us in that journey? It's an opportunity. So, and this is just getting at kind of the next transitional payment models, the ACOs, start to evaluate them. I mean, if we don't take them on as an industry, they're going to Medicare Advantage. Our population is moving to Medicare Advantage. And how does that look for all of us? It's not where we want to be. Population health. This is the blue bar in the middle. And think about this again as crawl. We're only going to say like patient-centered medical homes, team-based care models to support our primary care providers as they get crushed by the burden of the electronic health record, of the population health demands, and the shortage of providers to begin with. Team-based care, I believe, is going to be the future. Care management, claims analysis capabilities, all are opportunities. So I really look at this. This is something, for years, we've been able to maintain, essentially said that our payment system is constant. Our organizational strategy, when payment affects form and function, have been silent. We've just continued to go on assuming payment's going to stay the same, and it's not. And if payment affects form and function, we've got to think about how it affects our organizational strategy. From every provider organization in this room, every insurance in this room, it's going to affect you. And so the lessons I've learned is you know what? We're not going to go there. I just saved 10 minutes. Thank you. So I look at the kind of the current environment, community and rural hospitals. We've had many challenges, especially in areas like this. Again, I've been coming to Hawaii for 24 years. I've seen your challenges. You talk about a challenge. I mean, I was just sharing this last night. My second trip was 2 weeks after 9/11. The State Office of Rural Health, we had our Critical Access Hospital Conference in the Outrigger Waikoloa, which is now the Marriott, for many of you that know that. I think we were the only people at this hotel. And the decimation that 9/11 caused Hawaii, I've seen the challenge that you guys have gone through. It was horrible. But I think this new challenge of crossing this shaky bridge is going to be the biggest challenge we have as an industry. And at the same time, I would say we have to think about it proactively. We have to think about it in terms of transforming sick care, creating health care, and evolving payment such that none of them get behind or in front of the others. So what do? Increase leadership awareness of the new realities. Start to think about, what is this shaky bridge strategy? Improve operational efficiencies. Engage, have a quality system. You compete with anybody. Proactively engage with our medical staff, thinking about that independent to interdependent through governance, function, and contract. Same with larger systems, and proactively move towards payment. So I'm going to conclude this presentation by this. So as an accountant, that accountant from the 10th grade on, to some degree, I look at our industry and where we are today and blame us accountants for this, because we're the ones that designed this payment system. This payment system that solely focuses us on sick care. I see a world in which the resources in this room, the medical staffs, what you have in your hospitals, are equally applied to healthcare as they are sick care. And know that it's the payment system that's keeping us from what that world looks like. Join me in fixing payment so that we can unleash the power, the entire power of this room into both healthcare and sick care. Thank you. Oh boy. No time. I thought we were going to get back on track. No question. So I'm going to be part of the panel discussion. You guys can hit me. You can hit me upside the head then. Okay. All right.
Good job, Eric. Oh, good job. Good job. Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Mahalo, Eric. That was great. Woo. Our next two presenters will be sharing some exciting news as a result of a very, very special grant. Joining us on the stage will be from the Hawaii State Health Planning and Development Agency, Jack Lewin, MD, and also from Medicaid, MedQuest, Department of Human Services, Judy Mohr Peterson, PhD. Let's give them a big hand.
Aloha, colleagues. While our slides are being located, and my co-presenter is wandering to find her computer, I think, I'll introduce this topic a little bit before we actually get into the slides and the content. So let me just tell you, I'm Jack Lewin, a physician. I practiced on Maui, kind of know the Kula Hospital and Maui Memorial world very well. But the governor recruited me after he took office to come back to the joys of state employment. You know, it's the salary, no salary problems and no bureaucracy. But he did it because he felt like back in 1990 when I had the privilege of working as director of health with Governor Waihee, we had this Hawaii, the health state vision here. We got the employer mandate, the Prepaid Healthcare Act. We got most of the uninsured covered. We did all these things that happened. And so, he said, we're going to do it again. And I'll promise you a budget. But then the Maui wildfires occurred. And every dollar not nailed down went to the Maui wildfires, and it should have. And so I had to start looking around for where's the money to bring the staff and the actuaries and people together. We saw this thing called the AHEAD grant coming out of the federal government. They were worried because we're at $4.6 trillion right now, and it's going to $7 trillion by 2030. And frankly, the federal government doesn't know where that money is coming from, that extra money. And we're all going to be there. So I thought to myself, with my little staff of less than 10 people at SHPTA, I'll apply for this, but how am I going to do this? So I had to look around for the most innovative person I could imagine in state government who really was, a champion of sorts, who already was the leader. And that's this woman right next to me here, Judy Mohr Peterson. Give this woman a hand. She doesn't want this, she didn't want me to do this at the beginning, but I have to do it anyway because, I think Little SHPTA and the massive MedQuest program came together as partners in this. And so as our next speaker comes to tell you about it, I will just say that we had to write our own grant. We weren't one of the other states that had the fancy consultants and so forth. And so there was a bit of a surprise when it actually happened. But we have it, and we're delighted to tell you now about the AHEAD grant. And so let me introduce this champion of Hawaii, of our administrator of MedQuest program, Judy Mohr Peterson.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. I think the other reason was because it required that the Medicaid program participate. And so I think that was another part of that was certainly certainly incentive for doing that. So I think they're working on this. So we won't have our slides for just a little bit, but let's just keep right on going. One of the things that we're supposed to say before we do our presentation is that the AHEAD grant is funded by the HHS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and that it's an innovation, that it's $12 million for that grant, for which we are very grateful, and that anything that Jack and I say does not represent them. So, about the AHEAD grant, et cetera. So, as Jack was noting, we were successful in obtaining the AHEAD grant. And as Eric was talking and doing his presentation, I was like going, oh wait, this is a little bit backwards, because what he was talking about is what the AHEAD grant is designed to do, which is transform the payment system to be a population health payment system for hospitals and primary care. We were not clever, Jack and I were not clever, and designing this in a way in which, oh, see, here's the thing, here's the required things. We were surprised, Jack and I were surprised, because we were like going, oh, we have a presentation tomorrow, let's put something together. And then AHEAD goes, when we were first meeting with the CMMI folks, they were like, we need to see all your presentations 30 days in advance and approve it. And you must require these pieces. And we're like, okay. Because we were very used to, okay, let's just do this, let's do that. And clearly that's not how we normally operate. Okay. So this is a little bit why, in pictures, what Eric was said. And that is that our healthcare system is not a healthcare system. It's not a system, and it doesn't focus on health. It focuses on sickness and body parts. And we even have, that's what we talk about. That's our physicians. They're named by body parts, not by people, right? And so what happens? So we want to get to a place where we actually take a whole person approach. We think about the whole person and their well-being. I know it says population health, but it's really people health, right? People health. What does that person need in front of you? And this is a system, that we've created for the people who have the most complicated needs. And we say, oh, you have all these things wrong with you. So if you want to fix them and address them, please navigate this on your own. Oh, you have a problem in the middle of the night? Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, well then you go into the hospitals, right? And for all of this has generated the most expensive care in the world. The most expensive care in the world. And for all that money, are we getting our value? Are our outcomes better? We must have the best health outcomes in the world for all the money that we're spending. You all know the answer to that, don't you? We do not. We do not. And why do we not? It's because we have not invested. We've invested where the money was going. And it was not in health. It was not in healthcare. It was not in primary care. We have lots of money going into paying for our services. We need to think about how to invest our time, our resources, and our money differently. And that is what AHEAD is supposed to do. It is a multi-payer effort that, and that's the, AHEAD is an acronym, of course, States Advancing All Payer Health Equity Approaches and Development, AHEAD. I wonder how long it took them to come up with that. But nonetheless, we all call it AHEAD. The idea is, of course, we need to move forward. And it's a multi-payer, so it's not just Medicaid, it's actually also Medicare fee-for-service. It's our responsibility to loop in Medicare Advantage, as well as commercial and private pay into this whole model altogether. The focus is on, there's a cooperative agreement. That's the smallest part, and that's just to help us administer and pull people together, convene, come up with the models, help try to promote and incent as we move forward. It's focused on hospital global budgets. Here they've said out loud, here is what the model is that we want hospitals to do on the Medicare side. And they say, Medicaid, we'd like you to come along. We'd like you to be aligned. It's voluntary, but if you don't do it, you don't get to keep the grant. So you have to find enough hospitals who are willing to participate. And oh, by the way, we know that if you don't get your primary care and your other systems working together on this, it's not going to work. Because if I decrease the volume on the hospital side, and there's nobody who's going to be there in the community on the primary care side where we have to increase our investment, et cetera, if there's nobody there, then everybody is going to fail. So we have to come together. You remember that? No competitors in the room? Well, this is that. No competitors in the room. We cannot do this. It's not insurance companies against hospitals, against primary care, against specialists. It's not. And we've had forays into experimenting and starting in these things. And it's been rough, right? People are like going, that didn't work. I don't like that. I don't like payment transformation. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. But the fact is, that is the direction we're going. So if it didn't work, then what do we need to change to make it work? Because we're not going backwards. We're not going backwards. I was recently at a presentation, actually I see Kelly out there. I was recently at a presentation and the question I was asked is, hey, when is Medicaid gonna go back to a fee-for-service model? And I was like going, oh, that's an easy answer. We're not. We're not. But we are here, and Jack and I are here to figure out how it is that we can do this thing differently. And part of it is also, we have to invest in primary care, and we have to invest in primary care differently. Now, this model, the AHEAD model, its primary focus is on hospitals and primary care. Well, we also know, hey, if I'm not paying attention to the other parts of the health system, specialist care, and even long-term care, and putting all that whole continuum together, again, it's still just part of that system. I was talking with Mia Taylor over there from Queens, and the other thing I just want to point out here is, it's like this AHEAD model is for 10 years, presuming that we're successful in getting participants, et cetera. And in some ways, it feels like, well, can't we just focus on one part of it? Can't we just do one thing instead of everything altogether? And the fact is, when you're working on payment transformation and when you're working on transformation of the system, you have to go slower so that you can go faster. which is what Eric said differently, right? Crawl, walk, run, sprint. You have to go slower, and you have to be able to think about how those things fit together in order to move this forward. So, as you see here, the focus is on equity. That's a really important part. As the Medicaid program, of course, that is key and critical to us. There's behavioral health integration. So again, stop cutting the head off from the rest of the body. Think about how we all are, together as a single person. Medicaid alignment, as I was noting, which is here called the QUEST program, and then accelerating existing state innovations, of which we have lots. We have lots to build on. So with that, I believe the next is yours, Jack. Yes. There you go. Your turn.
Thanks, Judy. Incidentally, as you mentioned, bringing in long-term care in the whole spectrum, our MedQuest program, another innovation, first state in the country to add palliative care. So trying to go back to some of this, it's a cooperative agreement. And I would give that, I would put 2 dimensions on that. It's a cooperative agreement with us and CMS. It means that, look, CMS really is well-intentioned. This is kind of their backdoor view of how do we get to health system reform. And 4 states so far, we're one of the 4 states that's been brought into this model. But they really don't know any more than any of us do exactly how we're going to do that. It's going to be a work in progress that we have to find our way. And so it is a cooperative agreement. But the point that Judy and I really have to emphasize to you is it's a cooperative agreement with you, with all of you, if we make this work. So the parts of it that she mentioned, the primary care side, in the hospital global budgets, we're supposed to get a total cost of care model that we actually measure how much we're spending so we know and we can track it and do something about it if we think we're heading toward unaffordability, which we obviously are. And then health equity. I want to just mention to begin, just so those of you in the room that are feeling the pressures of our current situation, we are a state of inequity. We get paid in Medicare the lowest per capita reimbursement of all 50 states in the nation. Healthcare isn't cheaper here, but everything else is more expensive. Cost of living, cost of housing. It's formulaically absurd. And we are totally getting ripped off. And aside from the head grant, the governor who, by the way, this is a great time because we have a physician governor, a time for some real health system reform and an amazing physician governor. But we're going to have to mobilize on the side of this whole thing with people like Scott Grosskreutz and others here. The doctors get organized. The hospital leaders need to get organized. We need to get to Washington, and we need to get that benchmark in Medicare up to at least the national average, which would give us $1 billion a year more. But back to ahead. The primary care part of it, as Judy said, we're going to go from where we are now. 5 to 6% is probably what we're spending in primary care. That's what the nation's spending. We need to get to 12%. We know that's going to reduce unnecessary hospitalizations, ED visits, costs, but it's really going to be a challenge to get there. We don't even have the primary care providers. And that's our biggest challenge. We're so short of doctors and nurses and social workers and behavioral health professionals and so forth. But that's the challenge. And we also have to add the behavioral health and the social determinants there. As Judy mentioned, look, 20% of the impact on improving health is healthcare, and 80% is all the other stuff that we do in our lives. The way we live and social determinants and how much, whether we're subject to poverty or all the rest of that. So we have to put that all together in this primary care sense. And we need doctors, we need nurses, we need everybody involved, including the FQHCs. Really important to have FQHCs with us, critically important. And I want to mention that I see Dr. Sand over here, a dentist. We need dentists too. We need dentists for doctors. And by the way, he's available if you have sinusitis. But I want to just give you a little handle on the $12 million that we had to mention that we were getting for administration and data acquisition and stuff. And data, by the way, is a huge part of this. Pulling the data together, the all-payer claims database that we're working on together that will go live next year, bringing in the clinical data, and then knowing how we're doing and measuring and monitoring how we're doing and sharing that with each other, identifying gaps and addressing them is all going to be part of what this grant is about for us. But let me give you the other cash part of it. In the Medicare side, we have 330,000 people. If you put everybody together and the duals and everybody in there, we're moving up to about that many people in next year. They would be each eligible for, if we did this all totally right, something like an additional $17 per member per month or $200 a year. But when you add that all up, that'd be $66 million if we completely participated as a state. And that's a lot of money. That's going to be hard to get everybody to participate. But that's how the rest of this grant, once we go through the 2 years of pre-implementation, during the implementation years leading up to 2035, then there's much more money available going directly to hospitals, doctors, and providers who are participating, FQHCs, et cetera, in there too. The hospital global budget part is really kind of tough. Hospitals are literally girding their loins thinking about that. Remember when we used to, back in, 2 decades ago when DRGs were a horrible thing, a kind of a communist plot or something that hospitals would have to be subject to? Well, now that's our golden egg. We worship the DRGs. We got to let go, that's a fee-for-service model. And thank you for setting us up here with that. Look, right now, Medicare is underpaying every hospital in this state by at least 3 or 4%, and they're all in the red. So we have to kind of cost shift from commercial coverage. Medicaid's doing quite well. The hospitals are like plus 1% in our MedQuest program, which is quite an accomplishment, and we're paying Medicare reimbursements. Thank you, Judy and team at MedQuest. But Medicare is a terrible deficit for us. And we're going to have to fix that, and that's that state of inequity I talked about before. But, look, I see the possibility of giving hospitals in this model, remember, collaborative agreement, we're going to sit down with CMS and we're going to argue with them on their formulaic approaches that they've provided because they're flawed. They mean very well, but they're flawed. And we're going to have to help them understand what the successful model will actually be, and that's what this 2-year pre-implementation is all about, frankly. But I see a 2 to 3% minimum increase in the hospital bottom line in this model if we don't even do it completely effectively, all right? And the reason I want to give you a perspective on that is, we're probably at $10 billion a year for our total healthcare expenditures in Hawaii. 40% of that is hospitals, so thank you. That's 40, that if that's 10 billion, that's $4 billion. So 2 to 3% is, it's 80 to 120 million dollars, So look, we could be pulling in, 50 or 60 on the primary care side, 80 or more on the hospital side, 100. That's a lot of money directly to the system if we make this work and we do it together. That's what's so exciting about this, if we think about it right and the opportunity. Now, I know that from my physician colleagues' viewpoint and the hospital viewpoint, thinking about that, sure, a hospital global budget is going to be administratively less expensive, a lot more simple. You get the fixed amount negotiated at least last year plus inflation, and then incentives to improve upon that. But it's change is tough. I think we have to sort of, and for me to come up and Judy to say, just trust us, it's probably not the greatest means of negotiating participation. So we really want to sit with you and work out the numbers and make that happen. We also, though, have to do a total cost of care measurement, and frankly, that's not that hard. I mean, the insurance commissioner already has, there we go. The insurance commissioner already has, kind of all the data of what the insurance companies spend. We can pull that all together. But here's what the feds want. They want to see absent our participating in the model, our costs would be going up faster than they are. We are going to fix that Medicare inequity thing too. But this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to get done, and we can do it. And the cost growth and targets, sound like regulatory nightmares, but they're really not. They're responsible things we should be doing as a state to know how much we're spending and to act on that if we're heading toward unaffordability, which at $25,000 for a family of 4 a year, I'd say we're already there. So, that's part of this. And the equity part is really important as well, because we clearly have really major areas that we can work on here, and we're going to. So, we're not going to have a decrease in the payment or bottom line for doctors or for hospitals. That's not where we're going. But we're going to fix the way the model works, and we're going to grow together in this thing. And I just want to kind of just emphasize here, this is a huge opportunity if we do it together and we do it right. It's not the end all of everything we might want in healthcare, but it is a huge opportunity. And let's participate fully in it and make it really work. So, Judy, let me kind of let you go back and cover some of the Medicaid stuff.
All right, thank you. Tag team. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right. I love the way that we have the slides. We could have both gotten up here and talked without the slides, except for my one picture, which I like. Here, I'm just gonna move forward. I love this. This is the MedQuest mission, vision, and values. And one of the reasons I love this and that we put this together is because on the left-hand side, that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? Those are all our members. Those are the people we're serving. Those are the people that you're serving. Those are our aunties, our neighbors, our friends, our daughters, our sons, our parents. Everywhere I go, people say, "Well, what do you do, Judy?" I say, "Well, I run the Medicaid program." And they go, "Oh, it's like I'm on Medicaid. I'm over 65." And I go, "Oh, that's Medicare." But then I say, here in Hawaii, we call it the Quest program. And they go, "Oh, I know Quest. My auntie's on Quest. My son's on Quest. I'm on Quest. I love Quest." And so the Medicaid program is about the people that we're serving. Currently, the Quest program, the Medicaid program, covers half the children in the state. So if you are not serving Quest, you don't take Quest in your practice, that means that you're not serving your community. You're not serving your children. You're not serving the community at all. It's a third of the people, 1/3, 33% on Quest currently. So even if it was a quarter, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of people currently. Quest is actually an acronym. It was come up in 1995, 94, 95. So it's been around a long time. I like it because if you look at it, it still holds true today. We are about quality, universal access, efficient utilization, stabilizing costs, and transforming the healthcare for our members. That still rings true today. I also want to point out that in our vision statement, we include Ohana Nui, which means serving generations of family together with optimism, leadership, innovation, and always with aloha. So we've had a hope vision since way before pre-pandemic. And the thing that I want to point out most here is one, taking a whole person, whole family, and whole community approach. Two, we've had this three-legged stool since long before ahead, since long before, that we start talking about this. And for those of you who've known me and worked with me for the 9 years I've been here, you will know that I've been talking about this forever, which is we've got to change our investment strategy so that we're investing in primary care, preventive care, and health. Don't forget your kids. You're not going to get cost savings from kids, but you will in the long run. You can get immediate short-term investment results if you improve care for people with complex health and social needs by defragmenting or integrating that horrible system, the lack of a system, the non-system, and helping navigation, pulling things together, coordination of care. But you can't do it unless you realign your payment system and your financial incentives. And you've got to work on all three at the same time. And that is what the AHEAD model is giving us the opportunity to do in a way that we've not been able and not had the chance to do before. We've been able to focus on some of the primary care, making changes on preventive care, investments, changes there. We've been able to focus on changing some of our care models, improving care, et cetera. But the hardest part is and will be changing the financial incentives. But that's what we're here to do. That's what the AHEAD model is here to do. It's not us, Jack and I, doing this together. It is with all of you going step by step, being able to do this. And how long do we get to do it? 10 years. Okay, so 10 years. Woohoo! So the first 2 years are in implementation, what they call pre-implementation. That's planning. I don't know why they did this, but they gave Medicare or Medicaid, they gave us, MedQuest, a year less. Yeah, it's like, you don't need it. So you're so good, you could just do it. And so they gave us a year and a half, 18 months. Ooh, yay! So we'll be working on that, but the actual implementation, the first start of the implementation is for the first year for this, getting this going is the performance year 1 is January 1 of 2027. So we got a couple of years to work on this. So in this pre-implementation time period, thank you very much for this opportunity to have this opportunity to tell you what we're hoping to accomplish with all of you.
Yep. Okay, look, we're just about there.
We're done.
We're done, but here's what I want to say at the end. Just to say some short-term things to think about. Okay, we did get the general excise tax relief passed last year.
Yeah.
Together, yes. We're going to get the Patch Act passed through Congress to help with the gypsy payments. We're going to do that. We're going to do that big benchmark fix. That's a longer term. We're going to get that all done. There are a lot of things we can work on outside of this. But let's just think about the vision of what this could look like at the end of 10 years if we do it right. If we could lift up the Medicaid reimbursements, they're already there, but move them up all the way to the commercial level, lift the Medicare reimbursements up to the commercial level so that we have basically an all-payer system that even though the Medicare, the Medicaid, and the commercial side would have different sources of funding, and we would still have different competing insurance companies in the model, it would really be the result of what Bernie Sanders has been trying to get us to do all the way through all these years, which is a seamless system in which you can move from one part to the other, keep your doctor, go to the same hospital. It's all going to work. So keep that big vision of what at the end point this could look like if we do it right, and let's do it together. And thank Judy for all the great work she has done now. Look forward to working with you.
I think we did get us back on track, and I think they asked us if we would take some questions, right? So I don't know if there's any questions. There might not be, which is fine.
We know you have
Maybe
questions.
we're so,
But
maybe we're too efficient.
we're so articulate. No, yeah, I think you can pick us up out wherever you are. We'll be here at the whole meeting. Oh yes, Kelly.
Okay. I'm a family doctor, a primary care provider, so I should feel very powerful after these talks. And I feel good, but I have no power as an individual or even a member of a practice. So we have payment transformation here, one of our insurers at least, and I am told if I were to start a practice in a rural area, I would not have the volume necessary to make it work. It would fail and cost me probably my retirement savings. So I also, as was heard, cannot participate in more than one ACOs. So I would have to pick Queens or HPH or Kaiser, or, I can't take care of people in all of them, which is bad in a rural area also. So my question is, what do primary care providers, who, as you mentioned, we don't have enough of, what do we do to make it work in Hawaii, because it's not working?
Do you remember Eric's presentation when he had that diagram and it said transition to care, right? Yeah. I did too. I was like going, oh, look at that. There's a project plan right there. I appreciate it. So I think in some ways we need to build on what was there. So like moving in the area of payment transformation is the right step in the right direction. But it has flaws to it. It has areas in which it does not provide sufficient incentives. And I'm sorry, there's probably HMSA representatives here, but I have said this to them, so they are aware that this is the Medicaid perspective, that we're supportive of the direction. We're supportive of taking the bold step of moving in that direction. We believe that there are areas in which there needs to be additional incentives for caring for the sick people, right? So it's like, okay, we want to move away from paying for sick care, so we're going to do this over here, but then it's a counterbalance, right? Because, well, I still do need to pay have incentives for paying for sick people. If you think about pediatricians and delivering babies, and if you have a panel with delivering a lot of babies, or you have some very sick babies, then all of a sudden you're sort of out of whack, right? You're out of things. So I think those are when we wrote the application and the narrative together, we said that using and building on that kind of payment transformation model is useful in the sense of we have some lessons learned on how to think and where we need to continue to work on trying to align the incentives. And quite frankly, I don't know that we have examples across the state or across the country, or even in the world, because nobody else does their healthcare the way that we do our healthcare. Exactly. And so it is actually going to be up to us to work together on how to make these things work together. Because you're absolutely right that, like, oh, as a single provider, I don't know how this is going to work. And most of the models on the continent, they're groups of practices. They don't have the onesie twosie practices. So we will have to think about how can you be supportive of both the group practices, right? But how can you actually also support the onesie twosie practices? And really, again, I just want to bring it back to, it's actually something that Lieutenant Governor was actually also mentioning, is thinking about how do we provide the care for the individual, for the people, for our families, for our communities, because that's who we're trying to serve. So you're definitely approaching it from like, no, I want to provide this care. That's my goal, et cetera. But then how do we put those two things together?
one before the next question, just a quick additional answer. So if you did get paid as much with Medicare and Medicaid as you do for commercial insurance, it would be a little easier in your rural practice. But if we added artificial intelligence and better data, where we actually can give you feedback for care coordination in your team practice and in your network and working with the other providers in your community, I think your practice could be a lot better and a lot more secure. So I think we got to re-envision, so if we're looking at home and community-based services, we're going to be let's leverage doctors and nurses and social workers and others to care for more people with the use of telemedicine and community health workers and other kinds of approaches in the delivery model in this workforce shortage that we're in. New question.
Oh,
Yeah, you need your mic. You got the mic?
I think Lanny's gonna kick us out.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's good.
I just wanted to say to the question of how do we support rural physicians in this new payment transformation, what I heard you say, how I interpreted it was,
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
rural lives need to be paid at a higher rate.
Rural lives we need to come up with different ways to compensate for and to reimburse for. We need to think differently about how it is that we pay for our services, and geography and being rural needs to be one of those factors that has to be taken into consideration.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for everyone who participated in that question answer moment. There was so much shared with Eric, Jack, and Judy. I mean, are you guys like just blowing your minds with how much stuff they gave us? I want you to remember though, that it seems impossible until we do it. Okay, so the fact that we're talking story, we're all at the tables, it can make it possible, you must believe, because this would be life-changing for our industry here on the Big Island. I move now to lunchtime, which is why it was important for me to just kick Judy and Jack off the stage. I mean, let's be real, it's a priority now. All right, so this is what's happening. Is we have our lunch buffet set up outside. Please go and gather your food and bring it back in, because we have our U.S. House Representative Jill Tokuda, who will be taking us through our lunch presentation. So head on out there, no pressure, but try hurry up, get your food and come back. Thank you, folks. It is our U.S. House of Representative from District 2, Representative Jill Tokuda, who will be joining us. And we're gonna have a slightly different format for her. She's gonna talk story with you folks a little while, and then we're going to put the microphones out on the floor so that you folks can ask questions. Pretty much all questions are on the table, so no pressure. But if you guys start getting too slow on answering the questions, no worry, I'll go write some and I'll put them on you guys' table so that, it looks like, oh no, we're totally on it. All right. Before I have Jill come up here, how are you folks enjoying the food? Yeah. I mean, that Portuguese bean soup, that thing was a winner. So really, before you start having your desserts, which by the way, there's a lot of desserts on the back. There's brownies and thumbprint cookies and all the things that our doctor says that we shouldn't have, but in moderation. So let's now welcome to the stage Jill Tokuda. Let's give her a big hand.
Taller than I am. Sorry, a little short. Aloha, everyone. Oh, well, thank you so much for having me back here. And I always think it's the most difficult thing to talk to folks when they're eating lunch. And I saw what you're eating, so it's really good. So please keep on, hitting that buffet line and that dessert. But I do want to kind of keep this a little bit informal, and hear from you as well, and just talk a bit. But I was really thinking hard about what to say here, and you've got an excellent lineup. You've been hearing from amazing people all morning. You're going to have great discussions going forward throughout the day. But on my way here, I was talking with a young father from Waimea, and I asked him, "What is it that you want for your kids? What's your hope?" And I have 2 teenage sons, as many of you know. They were literally born at the state capitol. Crawling around the floor. No long-term damage that I can see so far. We'll see. But I asked him, I said, "What is it that you hope for when you look at your daughters and your family?" And he told me a chance at a future. A chance. The ability for them to see something for themselves. That trajectory that we want for all of our kids. That they're going to be able to afford a place to live. That they're going to be able to afford the food that they put on their table. Raise a family where they can have good schools and education, but more importantly, the most basic of all, that they're going to be able to get the health care that they need where they live. And that's not always accessible these days. I fly to every island in this chain. And for too many of you I know I've got folks here that live on Lanai. You can't have a baby there. If you have specialty care needs, it is impossible to come by. We know the numbers, sadly, that we are facing. And so to make it a little fun though, because I thought about this, my speech got real doom and gloom real fast as I started to think about a lot of things. Well, let's play a numbers game here. And thinking about that trajectory, thinking about the future, thinking about what we need for our kids. I'm going to throw out a few numbers. I want to see if there's any fast people in here who can guess what these numbers represent or stand for. I know it's a little tricky because it's just a number. But what do you think when I say 41? I know you're thinking my age, yeah? Thank you. I stopped counting at around 41, but it's not my age. Shortage of doctors on the Big Island. Okay, clearly he's watching Kelly with these slides over here. So unfortunately, 41 is exactly that. That is the physician shortage percentage on Hawaii Island. And I can tell you Honolulu is way better. It's not that great. It's literally 21%. Sadly, right? It's like barely legal, and Hawaii Island is Yakudoshi age, if you really think about those two numbers. So we've got a long way to go here when it comes to making better that physician shortage number. How about 73? That is really not my age. Don't you dare say that, please. I feel it some days in Congress. 73. Any idea? Just a guess. Throw it out. This is fun. We're having fun at lunch. The days? Oh. Okay, I'd actually be afraid to actually know. So she was saying the days it takes to get an appointment, right, I think, with a doctor. I hate to say it, but it actually might take longer depending on the kind of doctor that you want to see and where you live, right? That is a sad reality. No, 73 is the percentage of shortage of anesthesiologists and adult psychiatrists here on Hawaii County. Pediatrics is no better. I believe it's about 70%. Kelly Withy is in the room. She can give you all of those statistics down to the right, Kelly? It is not great. 66% shortage for all medical specialties is a shortage number across all medical specialties here on Hawaii Island, whether you're dealing with endocrinology, pulmonology, whether you're dealing with emergency, critical access care for adults, for youth. You know the numbers. These are not the kind of percentages that we want to see when we're talking about what's the trajectory for our families to be able to take care of the ones that they love, to be healthy in this community. And so really that is what this fight is all about. That is why I get so much hope when I come into rooms like this, because while these percentages are daunting and they're not necessarily getting better, I have hope when I can get on a plane in the morning, and many of you are sitting on there with me because we are coming together and realizing we're going to break silos down. We come from competitive industries, we come from different sectors, but we know at the end of the day, we all have this collective kuleana to actually take care of our families and our loved ones, to make sure providers, physicians can actually make it here and be able to take care of the ones that we love. And so to see all of you from across the spectrum here in this room, public and private, state, county, federal, sitting at same tables together, talking about solutions, that really does give me hope. And quite frankly, I was talking to someone earlier, I see this as hope for Hawaii Island, but I see exactly this room and what you're doing here as the model for the rest of the state. Right? Yeah, it's worth our applause. We should be doing this on every single island. For my district, I represent every island. Every county should be doing the exact same thing. And then when I think of it on a macro level, we need to be doing this for our country. Bottom line. Because we represent, to me, the very idea of what rural and remote America is. And when it comes to accessing healthcare and mental health services, we are rural and remote America. And so when you think about that, and as you know, I co-chair the Bipartisan Rural Health Caucus in Congress. Rural America is literally 97% of all the land mass in this country. Yet only 20% of the entire population, or 60 million Americans, live on this very large land mass, in some cases separated by ocean, non-contiguous as well. And so there are challenges every day. And we know that the trajectory, the quality of life, even the life expectancy for rural and remote Americans are far different from their urban neighbors and counterparts. And that is not fair. It should not matter what zip code you live in terms of how long you will live. It cannot, it should not. It's unacceptable to me that I will go to Waianae and sit on a beach and talk to my friend Uncle Eddie, and he will ask me as he points to Honolulu, how come they live 10 years longer than I do? And I can't answer his question. And I cannot give him an immediate solution. And for me, that's unacceptable. That's why rooms like this change lives. They extend lives. And we've got to make sure, especially on the federal level, when we go back to Congress, that we do the work to help you do better. And so, as you know, we left with a continuing resolution. What does that mean? We kept the lights on. We did keep money in there for FEMA, which is so important and critical in this day and age. But we have a long to-do list for healthcare. We have got extenders that we have got to fund and reauthorize to make sure that whether it is, the Flex program, whether it's the community health centers, whether it's the National Health Corps, teaching health centers, all of that is still on the table left to be funded. So we've got a very, very long list of things that we have to both reauthorize and fund when we go back to Congress in November. At the same time, I ask myself, if I had a magic wand, unless I check I didn't have one, but if I had one that I could pass for Hawaii specifically, and I know everyone outside the room is going to be like, well, what about this bill? What about that bill? But if I could do one thing for Hawaii and access to care, it would be that we finally pass the Protecting Access to Care in Hawaii Act, the PATCH Act, which I think very of you are familiar with. I was proud to introduce in the House, Senator Schatz on the Senate side. At the end of the day, I'm preaching to the choir. It's about fairness. It's about absolute fairness. The bottom line is our physicians, our providers, you are giving everything and then some. Many of you aren't even paying yourself at the end of the day, just so you can make sure we take care of our families. That is unacceptable. We have watched for the last 2 decades the cost of care rise. At the same time, 29% less in terms of the rates and the money that you get in your pocket. And that's not even considering how much more expensive it is here in Hawaii. If we can immediately see a 24% increase in bump, just to reflect the actual cost of care, and honestly, that's still not enough in most cases, that's gonna be a game changer for our ability to really take care of our rural communities, to make sure you can stay open and keep those doors open. Keep taking care of our loved ones here in Hawaii. So if I had my magic wand, that would be the first thing that I would ask, that we pass, to really give us a shot, that trajectory, that goal of making sure everyone can see a future for themselves here. Now, I have a lot of other things I could talk about, but you've just had lunch and maybe not dessert. So I know you will fall asleep if I talked about all the policy measures that I would like to see happen. But I'd love to hear from you. hear questions, hear thoughts, health or otherwise. It's a busy time right now. But if we could, I know there's microphones on the table somewhere. And if we could, I would love to just have a little time to ask you Q&A or to hear your opinions. Any takers? Okay. Or if someone's got a live mic on another table to share, or maybe the mic man knows. So the Patch Act really is about fairness. While we're getting the mic all set up, as many of you know, it's about making sure that we can increase the Medicare payments. Oh, are they getting it okay?
We're all set. But
To accurately reflect the cost of care. Again, I said that the average we're thinking is 24% increase. I know at the end of the day, that still doesn't seem like enough. It really doesn't, but that's going to be a huge help. And again, I know many of you, you're burning into the red just to take care of people, and that is absolutely not acceptable. It's not going to attract people. It's not going to retain people here, but that's, I think, one of the big things we can do. Maybe when we flip the majority, we can do that too. Again, lots of hope there.
excellent work. Thank you. So, Representative Tokuda, thank you for coming in your comments and all the work that you do on our behalf. I mean, we do also want to fix the prior authorization problem, at least speed that up, because that's a huge nightmare for doctors and hospitals and everybody, and actually for the insurance companies. So let's fix that.
I agree.
But the other thing I mentioned to everybody this morning, and I'm going to be here to on behalf of the Gov and everybody else to make this happen and help you, is to mobilize an army of people to get into the Senate's Finance Committee, the Help Committee, WHAM, and so forth, to tell them we need help with our Medicare reimbursement, which is at the lowest per capita in the country, in the highest cost state. And talk about the problem for our rural providers, because it's just, we're so underpaying in that area, and that's where a lot of high cost patients are. So I don't want to belabor it right now, but we're going to, organize and mobilize an army for next year's Congress to get that fixed somehow. And thank you for your help in advance.
Absolutely. Thank you. You're absolutely right. I know it personally. I also hate prior authorization. That has been a personal a problem for me. But please mobilize that army. I will tell you, the one thing that we need in Congress is to put real faces and experiences with the pieces of paper that are bills that are introduced. It's not just paper and ink on paper, it's real lives. And so if you can share the story, bring the armies to DC. If you can't bring them to DC, share them with me. In November, I throw this out there, in November, we're celebrating Rural Health Month. So I'm going to be doing a special order hour, bipartisan, where I take to the floor with Democrats and Republicans, and we talk about rural health care and what that means for our people, the challenges and the opportunities. If you share the real stories with us of what rural health looks like here in Hawaii, I will be able to share that in Congress. So please mobilize the army and share the stories. That's what we need to really make it real to people, what we're trying to fight for. Thank you.
Congresswoman, I'm Scott Grosgrace. I just want to say thank you so much for all your efforts to improve access to care in the state. The Congresswoman has personally responded to many members of our task force and that on the shortage of providers, and she took the time to fly out to Hilo to meet with us recently. The Patch Act is going to be so important. Jack raised the issue of prior authorizations. As you mentioned, we've got a 41% shortage of physicians on the Big Island. It was 43% on Maui, and that's before the tragic fires at Lahaina burned down multiple medical clinics. They could be closer to 50 now. And so one of the challenges we have is that we've got people that don't have access to care. They're having bad outcomes. That's happening now. It's going to happen over the course of the next year. And obviously, the most important and easiest way to improve access to care is to optimize the productivity of the providers that we actually have, the boots on the ground. So you can't have pediatricians or other folks that are out there trying to take care of the community that are only operating at 65% efficiency or 75% or maybe 80 because they're spending 10 to 20 hours a week working on prior authorization. On Maui, one of the easiest ways to help address the healthcare crisis there is simply to ban or have a moratorium on prior authorization so the providers can operate at 100% over the course of the next year till we can, train and recruit more people.
Thank you. I think it's time we start looking at radical and bold solutions because we're past the point of studying things or taking things slowly in many cases, because the longer we take, the more, as you folks know, chronic and difficult the issue is going to be to actually reverse the trend. I know Lisa Groves is in here, and one of the studies from Lahaina talked about the mental health of survivors, how they were feeling. But one of the questions really, really hit me hard, why people were thinking of leaving Hawaii. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of our kids and our families being our greatest export from this state. I don't want to go to Zippy's in Vegas and see more locals there than here. And yet that is what is happening. And when I looked at the report, I believe it was 71% when they asked, what was the reason you're thinking of leaving Hawaii, your home? Access to healthcare. I've never seen that one so high up, and yet doesn't it make sense, especially for people who have been traumatized, physically and mentally? If you cannot get the care you and your loved ones need, you're gonna go find it somewhere else. And it should never be the case that the somewhere else is outside of Hawaii. So unless we bless you, unless we do something urgently, and we take up what could be considered very aggressive, very bold actions, our babies are going to continue to leave these shores. And who will be left to care for us? Who will be left here in our communities and our neighborhoods? And so I think we have got to be both at the state and the federal level when we consider solutions, because even nationally, when I look around, I know I care about this, I'm about Hawaii, but the similar situation is found in so many other communities. So many states, rural communities, communities of color, indigenous communities. There are so many, too many similarities that I see where they tell me people are leaving. They're just going because they cannot find the jobs, the care, the housing. This is not something we want to be the norm. And so, yes, I agree with you. We have got to be considering bold solutions, even for a limited time as proof of concept, because at the end of the day, it's about making sure we just stop. We stop the outflow of our people and we stop the bleed. So thank you for those suggestions. And we've got to look at all of those things. Anyone else?
Aloha, Congresswoman Tokuda. I just wanted to ask about veteran care because we have so many on this island that are underserved, and most of the care is on Oahu. So what are your plans on putting together more services and care for the veterans on our island? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have a very high veteran population in Hawaii, and in particular on our neighbor islands. And so we've got to make sure that they have center-based care available here, and we have been improving the C-box that are on island. At the end of the day, I have talked to the Administrator of Veterans Affairs and mentioned that we've got to think about transportation. I think that is one of those little things that folks don't think about on the continent. The fact that in many cases, how can you make sure it's reimbursable when you have to fly for the specialty care? Because as we know, we don't have specialists available on every single island that can see people in a timely fashion. So in many cases, it's also making sure that the reimbursements are available for transportation. And you got to think about the car too, right? It's air transportation, but it's also, especially for this island, it might cost you a lot of money in gas if you even have access to a vehicle to be able to get to Kona or to Hilo, where the care is right now for our veterans. So one of the things I've pushed is thinking outside of the box at what are those barriers to care actually on our neighboring communities, and transportation dings right up there, up top. And it is air, but it's also ground transportation. How are you making sure that we, make permanent, quite frankly, COVID era flexibilities for veteran care and for regular care, telehealth, telephonic care. I always bring up audio only because there are many communities even now that you all serve, the Wi-Fi is not that great. You pick up your phone, you're still not getting a charge, right? It may not also be accessible for some of our community members. So audio only might be the lifeline that they need to be able to get the help, support, the scripts called in that you need to do, and they should be completely reimbursable. And so that's something that we've also fought for. But absolutely, the access to care for our neighbor island communities. I've talked a lot with Veterans Administration about what that looks like here, and making sure that we meet people where they're at as much as humanly possible. But recognizing just being on island doesn't mean it's close. And so how are we ensuring that transportation and access? So I welcome if there are suggestions that anyone has as to how we can reduce some of those barriers or identify for us barriers we may not even know exist. That's really helpful for us to then be able to reach out and find solutions. Sometimes they're bills, sometimes it's administrative fixes that we are looking at. But that's really important that we care for our veterans and find ways to meet them where they're at. So thank you.
Oh, Representative Tokuda, thank you for being one of our warriors in Capitol Hill. I am interested. I'm curious to know what are the healthcare policies that are being addressed
Are being passed?
currently?
Ooh. Well, it's been a rough 2 years in Congress. Honestly, there has not been really the passage of the kind of bills that we want to see right now. If anything, I'll be honest, we have often been voting against measures that would limit access to care. I think you've seen a lot of the battle lines that have been drawn from a partisan perspective in terms of limiting the kinds of drugs, especially when it comes to abortion care, when it comes to gender, reassignment care, all of these, even birth control. Birth control. Before I left Congress, I was yelling, but yelling at a press conference about what it means to have access to IUDs and birth control. And not just to be able to prevent pregnancy, but for someone like myself that suffers from endometriosis, adenomyosis, and PCOS, it's about daily survival. That's really what it is for so many. And the fact that we have legislation out there and trying to be passed and added on to things like the Farm Bill or the National Defense Authorization Act or other appropriations to limit or restrict access to that, that would be, for many of us, it would really, really impact our ability to function, our daily life. It's life-threatening for some individuals. And so we've often, I would sadly say the last few months, especially for the last couple of years, we've pushed back on policies that ultimately would really take us backwards and impede access to care. I do think there are many individuals on both sides of the aisle that would like to see a path forward. We are increasing access, keeping rural hospitals opening, increasing Medicare reimbursement rates, but the ability for us to find that common ground and move good things forward has been extremely, extremely limited in this Congress. And so, like I said, I wanted to keep this positive at lunch, but I do think we are very hopeful. We are hoping for a better Congress in the 119th next year, where we can get good stuff done. I like voting for things. I like speaking for measures. It's really difficult to have to speak against it. And at the same time, I will do it over and over again if we have to. If it means you have every tool in your toolbox to be able to provide health care to your community without the threat of being arrested or any kind of criminal lawsuits against you, we will keep standing up for what's right. So I hope next year, this time, if you invite me back, I hope we'll have better things to be able to report in terms of the kinds of things that we've been able to pass and the work that we're able to do. So, but thank you for that question.
Aloha, my name is Jessica McCullum. I'm with the Ava Sophia Foundation, a local nonprofit. We're better known as Autism Moms of Kona. So my question is, the current prevalence rate of autism is 1 in 36 children. That's based off of the CDC data from 2018. They have not updated their data since. The current prevalence rate of a child between the ages 3 and 17 for having a developmental disability between up until the year of 2017 is 1 in 6 children have a developmental disability. So my question then becomes, what can the healthcare system do to increase service provision within our Department of Education so our keiki get that support?
Thank you for that. Did you see CDC has not updated their data since 2018?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. I think first things first, there's a lot of things we need to do, but first things first, I believe in accurate data. And also the data that you track on a regular basis is what you prioritize as well. So we have to make sure that the CDC is updating its data. We are now in 2024. That's 6 years too long, and we know that we saw a tremendous amount of both learning loss and access to screenings, treatment, regular health visits, during that really difficult period of COVID. And so a lot has happened since 2017, 2018, when they were last looking at those numbers. So first of all, we have got to request that be updated. If it's not happening soon, then we need to call for that update of data. For data as well, I want to make sure it's disaggregated to a point when we truly understand, who is being impacted here. What is going to be the best ability for us to care for them going forward, to put together educational plans as well, to support them and their families. And so as much as it is the data, I want to make sure we're also asking the right questions and we're disaggregating the data as well. And as you know, we've made great strides recently to disaggregate data for our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities. It is now required by federal government. We have to keep on them though. We absolutely have to keep on them to make sure that that disaggregation is both taking place for the data sets that are coming forward, but also I'm going to take it a next step further and making sure we are asking the right questions and we're seeking the right information out. I cannot profess to know what that is, but that's where we rely on groups like yours, especially at the local and national level, to be able to make sure, hey, the questions that aren't being asked, this is what they are, and then we push CDC for that. And so I think it's a chicken and egg, but I think the good data, the updating of data needs to happen first, and there needs to be then a push to act on that data to make sure that services are being provided at the DOE level with fidelity. And that's where then it comes in the interface with the state. We have senator that just walked in the room. No pressure. I can actually see without my glasses right there. But Representative Joyce Sanabanjuro, she is the one who would also make sure that at the state level, it is a DOE issue, but as a health committee chair, making sure that we have robust services for our students, no matter where they live, by the way, no matter where they live. That is part of FAPE. That is our commitment to our kids from a national level and a local level, that we will take care of their needs. But first and foremost, we have to make sure that we see them. And data from 2017 does not see our children now that are going through our schools. You're literally in high school if you're a little elementary kid back in 2017, 2018. And so, that is something, my poor little staff there, we can, oh, he's saying one more question. I'm giving him one more job. We need to write a letter to the CDC to request that information when we go back. I thought he was offering to do it. Sorry, Nick. That's Nick Luna from my team.
Aloha.
Oh.
I'm Heather. I work with Transformation Health Network, which is also known as Aloha Kona Urgent and Primary Care Centers. And as we've learned this morning, we're trying to transition our payment systems and how it's not working. And as we get more involvement with the primary care system and to make us the prevention, keep people out of the hospital, but you relate that to the data where our Medicare part or the Advantage plans are increasing significantly. Our hospital stays are also decreasing. So where does that leave our kapuna when they have to have a 3-day Medicare stay to have a transition from primary care to skilled nursing or long-term care? Is there any plan to fill in that gap so we have more help for our kapuna?
Oh, thank you for that question. Our system is broken in many ways. I know it doesn't help to just say it, but it doesn't make sense on a practical level in terms of really truly taking care of our families and making sure that we have that smooth transition that doesn't always follow billable rates and formulas and all these other things. And so I do think that there is a need for us to really step back and look at the system, especially how it might work in rural communities where access to certain types of facilities and care are very limited. Our ability even to give within our homes is very, very limited. And so I do think that there is a need. I wish I had the answer for it, but I do think there's a need for us to reevaluate it. One of the things is, that I've been pushing as well is we have been trying to support rural hospitals staying alive by, opening up their doors for emergency care. But one of the stipulations with those grants is you have to take away your inpatient beds. That doesn't make any sense. Because for so many, home is a long ways away. Home may not have a caregiver to take care of you. You may not need emergency care at that moment, but the continuous care to make sure that your recovery is successful means an inpatient bed is required in your community. And so one of the things that I am pushing, there is a bill out there in the Senate I've asked to sponsor it in the House as well and push it wholeheartedly, is we have to make sure that, yes, we're supporting access to emergency care, keeping rural hospitals open, being able to provide that, but at the same time, those inpatient beds as well as that transition is really, really critical to happen. We have to allow them to do that and not penalize them for having those inpatient bed services also available in addition to the emergency care that they're providing. And so there are many different solutions I feel like that we have got to start approaching, but part of it is making sure decision makers in DC truly understand that the system as it is right now leaves too many in the gap. And that is absolutely unacceptable for communities, not just ours, but we're seeing this across the country as well. So thank you for raising it, and know that that is something that I'm absolutely also looking at. I don't serve on the greatest committees for health right now, I will say. I serve on armed services and ag, although I love those committees. They are wonderful. I sit on the special select subcommittee for the coronavirus pandemic, which can be a little crazy at times. But you can believe I am fighting to make sure maybe next year we get a great committee assignment because we've got more slots. If I have my way, I will hopefully be sitting on a committee where I'll be seeing bills like this, be able to pass good bills for healthcare and health policy going forward. So I'm crossing my fingers, working hard, and really hoping that next year, if you invite me back, that we'll be able to talk about the real work that we're actually doing, the bold actions, the aggressive actions we're taking to make change for our community. So I just really appreciate this opportunity. I know I'm getting the yank right now that I've got to get off, but welcome any other thoughts or questions outside if anyone has them. But again, mahalo for being the North Star for all of us in terms of what caring for communities look like. That is what we have in this room. I want to see it for all of our islands. I want to see this kind of gathering, this kind of work, this kind of effort for our whole country as well. So you give me hope and inspiration, and know that I'm just going to go back to DC and charge ahead thanks to all that you are doing. So mahalo again for always including me.
You know, if you haven't had an opportunity to watch Jill on the floor in DC, I mean, it's such a wonderful experience because she give them when she's up there, you know, no scared. They don't know. She get the tita bun, you know, in the back. And yeah, they're thinking, oh, look, you know, this little meek little thing, it's going to come up here and tell us this. And she was like going for it. You know, the arm was going up. Whoo, this is how. I'd like to take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be here today. And we have wonderful sponsors, HMSA, State Department of Health, the Stepsky Foundation, yay, they helped us too. Of course, Hilo Benioff Medical Center, Kona Community Hospital, Kaiser Permanente, Hawaii Island Community Health Center, Queens Medical Center, Ohana Health Plan, COCO, Aloha Care, HSRHA, and for all of us who wonder what we're going to have for dinner, please go to our final sponsor, KTA. Let's give them up if you can. Gotta love KTA, gotta love KTA. All right. Now we're coming to a point where we're gonna break out into the different meeting rooms, which is right across the courtyard there. And if you're not sure which room you wanna go to, you can take a look in here. You can see the information on, it's actually listed in the middle, and it shows like which room that we're gonna go into. So at this time, I'm going to ask you to please go ahead and choose what breakout session you'd like to go to. There is going to be a session in this room as well, and it is going to be Number 5, the vital role of private practice providers in rural Hawaii, which we've been really talking a lot about that today. So if you'd like to stay in this room, that's what's going to happen here. But for everyone else who has chosen a topic that you'd like to learn more about, please feel free to head on out to the courtyard and find your meeting room. Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll give everybody a few more minutes to get into the room.